come join me. Hey, Penguin Boss, you won the giveaway. Join me to learn and find a
What?
new
No,
love for
no,
all
no. I
things.
gifted.
Oh, you gifted. Oh, I'm sorry. The giveaway is gonna run in 52 seconds. I just saw your name flash up on the screen. See, all these things
Don't
are
you love
flying
it?
up at us these days.
I know. All these changes.
Join me to learn and find a new love for all things photographic. Also, feel free to reach out with any questions you might have. I'm always here to help. And Jason
Oh.
also has his bio. Oh, no, this isn't Jason's bio now. Gotta go backwards, not forwards. Jason also has his bin loaded as well. So check it out.
Tons
You
of
can get
knowledge on photography. That's amazing.
exactly. Yep. He's going to go over all things photo identifying and valuation. So please take the time to check that out or just stay with us and we
Awesome.
will escort you throughout the train.
Yeah. At
All right. Who's
6:40,
after that?
sorry, 5:45. Oh, Flippin' Roo won the
Flippin'
giveaway.
Roo. Oh, there's Paper Goy in the chat, you guys. So you can kind of go see right now if you want a double device that you can jump onto YouTube, the $1,000,000 Peddlers, and watch both ways. That's fun. All right, so Millicent's
Yep, at
memories.
5:45. Yep. She's
Hey, Flippin'
doing
Roo,
postcards.
congratulations! Yay! Pinning another
You're trying to grab
giveaway.
my hair.
All right, so Millicent is a retired educator from Tennessee. She's been selling on Whatnot since 2022. I love and collect all things vintage and antique. Catch my ephemera shows and my estate sales shows where I share with you my eclectic lifetime collections.
Yep.
And Millicent has a bunch of stuff in her bin. There's a random jar of buttons, like half of a pound of buttons. I just like saying the word buttons.
Buttons.
Buttons. Yep, there's a Nebraska card. I don't know why everything's so large right now.
Anytime, Jason. Awesome.
Yeah,
He
that's
has
not
a
the only
lot of
thing you'll
knowledge.
do down
He's a
there.
teacher.
You're gonna want to get in the ocean, I would imagine, get some sun.
Oh, yes.
All right, after Millicent,
6:30. We have Paper Goy, who's in the chat now.
right, Paper Goy, half of $1,000,000 Peddlers, bringing you ephemera and books at great prices, always eclectic lots curated for you. And pre-bids are always
Ways
welcome.
welcome.
Did I do that justice? Did I
You
do that
did. I thought that was super
justice?
fun. Yes.
And then here is just some of the items that he'll be talking about tonight. Like I said, a lot of these sellers, like if you want to buy something, you certainly can ask, but a lot of these sellers are showing you items out of their collection. So it'll be up to them whether or not they want to sell or just talk about it. All right,
Yes.
who do we have after Paperboy?
7:15. Rumpus Room Collectibles. Miss Carrie. Which, by the way, guys, it's only her second show. So send her, give her some love.
She's gonna do fine. She's gonna do fine. Thank you,
Oh,
Millicent, for shouting
yep.
out your subject matter.
The title, yeah.
Are we? I was like, have we been saying it?
Yes.
Pengies, you've been saying it, right?
Sorry, yes. But some of my, so yes, Rumpus is doing 3D vintage discovering stereoscopes and stereo views.
Yes. Yep. So Rumpus Room Collectibles is named after our vintage-inspired rec room. I'm a former elementary teacher turned reseller outside Whatnot, specializing in vintage and antique finds. My passion for photography, genealogy, ephemera, uranium glass, oh, I didn't know she liked uranium glass, and history fuels my love for these items, often leading me down fascinating rabbit holes of discovery. So that's Rumpus Room. And I just found out her significant other is Cards and Vinyl. So if you guys want to give him a follow too, he's on the app and he did a great job helping her out on her first show. So
Thank you, Jessica,
yay.
for randomly gifting. Enter the Givey Gun.
Yes, thank you guys so much for randomly gifting and or buying out of the bin. Appreciate y'all's.
Yes.
Enter the
All right.
giveaway. Who's
After
after?
Rumpus at 8 o'clock, we have the lovely ladies of Historian Emporium. Lots of knowledge there as well. They're going to cover dating photography through fashion, which was they touched that on a little bit the first time, and it's amazing the stuff you'll learn.
Yes, we enjoyed their talk. The first go round was very surprising. We were all captivated by the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge that you can gain just from having a little bit of knowledge about the fashion of all the different eras. They went over all the different eras, so it was
Yep.
quite eye-opening. So they are two historians who specialize in antique photos, prints, and ephemera. And if you've ever watched any of their shows, they're known for kind of their unique images that they
Yes.
naturally collect themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
they end up bringing them to Whatnot. So they have a unique eye, I would say, right?
Absolutely. Uh,
And after Historian Emporium is
we're gonna close off the night with at 8:45 Thrifty Dots and Mom, our own Betsy, who's another OG. She's doing trade cards, but she's gonna pair them with their products. So one thing I didn't know, and I learned about Thrifty the last time we talked about this, was that she pairs like certain trade cards with their
okay.
bottles because there's certain bottles. What happened? There she is.
Nothing.
so
I'm just yelling
so
at Thrifty.
still loading. That's okay. That's what everybody. Jesse.
Yay, Jesse! Congratulations!
Uh,
Yay! I shudder
but
to
yeah,
think
so
though that I
that's
was just on the Ruse television screen doing that.
in big picture. Yes, like
Sorry,
me in this
Ruse.
phone putting barn. So I'm trying to keep it away from my face.
All
So,
right, so
oh my god.
Thrifty is I love ephemera, especially Victorian trade cards and antique photos. Mom to three crazy dachshunds who rule my house. Come join me for
Oh,
ephemera and vintage decor sales every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern for ephemera and vintage decor every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern.
and my favorite.
And she's gonna have 10 lots of paired up trade cards with their bottles. So that's kind of really neat, I think. What do you guys
That
think?
is really neat. The fact that you can find that and pair them, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. I just want to point out too that we've compiled a resource library for you guys based on the subjects that we have tonight recommended by the sellers that are speaking. So this is on schmidtauctions.com. If you want to, I tried to put links where we had them, but these are the recommended books for reading if you're interested in further learning and expanding your knowledge of any particular subject matter. BB's contributed some resources for pinups. Millicent's contributed resources for postcards, including Popeye. We have Popeye in there as a resource
Yeah,
because he has a YouTube channel as well where he talks about reselling postcards.
lots of info. Yeah.
Yep,
Hmm.
Rumpus Room has contributed resources regarding stereo view cards and viewers. And Historium Emporium has contributed for the dating photography through fashion, and Thrifty has contributed some for trade cards. So, if any of our sellers would like to add to our growing resource list, feel free to do so. It's just meant to be an area where people can go if they want to reference something you guys spoke about tonight, or really just have a good read about, learn something new, move into a new niche, as we like to
Absolutely.
say. Enter another giveaway,
Yes.
you guys.
All
All
right. Oh,
right,
my hands are
so
all dirty from being at the barn, but I'm gonna say goodbye since we're gonna head over here soon. So I'm going to see you guys on. We'll be modding. So if you guys have any questions, just reach out to Marla and I. Bye.
bye, Pengy. Do you need me to remove you?
Bye.
Okay, all right. Are you guys ready to go? I'm going to draw this last giveaway and we're going to go over to BB's Trunk Vintage. Please tag your friends if you think this would be a subject matter they'd be interested in learning about. And again, thank you to Papergoy for live streaming this on the Million Dollar Peddlers YouTube channel. So you can go on over there and watch there, or you can stay with us on Whatnot and watch here. Thank you all very much. Let me pull this giveaway. Fabulous fossil forward finds. Hey, Moody Mommy. Congratulations. You're going to get an ephemera giveaway bundle. All right, you guys, here we go. Check out everybody's buy it nows. Evie, there you are. All right, here we go.
Swap cards of pinup girls from the 40s, and I guess this one's from right around 1950. These two are Elvgrens, and this one is Al Moore, and was an Esquire calendar image. So they're there, and we'll be. Let's start that off. Start that giveaway. So I hope. Oh, thank you, Moody Mommy. So I'm going to try to live up to my Pinup King nickname, but I'll leave that in your hands to decide whether I'm successful. So the topic for today's show, I posed as the history of pinup illustration from 1900 to 1950. Um, Oh, Mongo Files. Thank you. Or you unlocked bronze. Go ahead and grab your coupon. So the idea here is to sort of say, we conventionally think of pinups in a certain way. We tend to think of the very sexualized images that really, you know, really became popular in the types of images that you see in the swap cards from the 40s. But the reality is that the pinup emerged out of a series of changes, historical changes, and so like that's going to be one of the themes, is not just looking at the art and the artists, but also to think about what was going on in society at these times. So like one of the first things to discuss is, what is a pinup? I mean, the term itself, pinup, didn't actually enter the English vocabulary until around 1941. That's when we first see it being used. But the concept of a pinup had certainly been around before that. Um, the One of the first important things about pinups is it's not the same as fine art. It's not necessarily always the same as erotic art. Um, it it stays short of sort of like pure erotica and certainly pornography. Um, but it's related in the sense that it makes use of an idealized view of the feminine form and femininity, as and then uses that imagery. Now, specifically, we wouldn't call a canvas a pinup. Um, the One of the big things about a pinup is that it's mass produced, and it becomes increasingly connected with commercial activity, so that eventually it becomes really about pure advertising. And the images very early on, even going back to the first person we're going to talk about, Charles Dana Gibson, do emerge as being used not only for things like postcards, and where the imagery themselves are the feature, but then also the image of the Gibson girl that shows up as advertising different products. Um, so let's get started with the Gibson girl, because that's kind of where most people sort of say, hey, there's definitely stuff before that was a precursor, but like there's a moment that happens. So one of those big influences that I mentioned, by the way, is chroma. Um, oh gosh, uh, my brain just went blank, as one does. Um, well, it's printing, it's color printing, right? Um, so the first thing we had were these illustrations for chromolithographs. Oh my God, thank you for bailing me out there, Vintage View. Um, so these first sort of images of the sort of the proto pinup girl, what we would say from Charles Dana Gibson, they were line and ink drawings, pen and ink drawings. So here's an example of a Gibson girl, and I'm sure that many people in the room are kind of familiar with, yes, chromolithography. Um, uh, so here we see a Gibson girl, and we see some of the telltale signs. She's got a narrow waist. If we were to see her from the profile, we'd see that she has a bust, and she has what's called an S curve. So her bust sticks out on one side, but her bottom sticks out on the other side. So from profile, she looks kind of like an S shape. But she's doing something. She's playing golf, and that's noteworthy. Here we go. We have, our bathing beauties, really pretty women with the hair done up in lovely costume, in lovely bathing costume, sitting out. And this image is famous. You'll see this image in lots of places and talked about in the context of the emergence of the pinup. As a note, I believe that the original drawing of this is actually currently for sale on eBay for around $5,000. So if you're looking for an investment piece, now might be your opportunity. Not for me, and that's not a plug. I'm just saying I think it's the like Sotheby's confirmed piece that is sold previously at auction. So that was Gibson. One of the things that the Gibson girl you notice about not only just the form itself, but it's that she has a confident demeanor, and she has more independence, modernity, um, and there is more freedom for women of this era than previously in the sort of Victorian period. Is there something I needed to catch in the chat there? Um, okay, so thank you for the random gifting. Um, so the Gibson Girl became widely published in magazines and newspapers, and started to be kind of like a form unto itself. You'd see Gibson Girls, you'll find Gibson Girl postcards, and they're not all made by Gibson himself. There were many sort of like copycat, or you say people who were kind of like building on the form. You have people like Harrison Fisher and other illustrators of the time period who, kind of contributed to the sort of glamour imagery that emerges from the Gibson Girl. And then, of course, the Gibson Girl kind of influences other artists and illustrators, and leads sort of into the Art Nouveau style. One of the things that actually happens that kind of aligns with the Gibson Girl also is the emergence of, and it shaped fashion. It's the emergence of the bicycle. So, like, that's our second technology, along with chromolithography that comes out starting in the 1870s, and you see the trade cards of the period. And now we've got the emergence of the bicycle, which was a real freeing thing for women of the time, to have the access to that kind of mobility. And but you need to change the kind of clothes that you wear, and those clothes have to become a little bit more practical, not as much bustle and layers of undergarments, and you need to be able to get up on a bike and move your legs. And so that's part of what you see. And then other kinds of sports, you'll see Gibson girls who play tennis, Gibson girls who swim, Gibson girls who golf. All of those activities sort of leading to an idea that the modern woman is beautiful, strikingly beautiful, has a painfully impossible physique, but also is, has this kind of freedom and confidence, um, that was not necessarily part of the the ideal woman of the previous periods. Um, so yeah, this is the first time that we also have a sort of female image that gets used for advertising, like clothing, cosmetics, household items, and it helps to start shaping the consumer culture. So that's yes, that's a really important aspect, Moody Mommy, and I have to say, the history and the role of all kinds of fashion imagery, sexualized imagery, the pinup itself has a very complicated history in the context of gender equality, you know, feminism, and I'm not really able to sort of like talk about the sort of the cause and effect ripples. So I'm going to focus primarily on the art today, but those are absolutely vital and important conversations to be had. So and there are lots of resources out there about that aspect of pinup girl. The next person I wanted to talk about, sort of emerging into the 1910s, um, is Raphael Kirchner. Many of you probably already know that I'm a big Kirchner fan. I'll start off by saying there was an old joke in Europe about how American women in art didn't have legs. Um, and this joke stemmed from the fact that many American illustrations, particularly the Gibson Girl, often depicted women from the waist up, or their legs were completely covered down to the ankle. Now, this joke also highlighted the cultural differences in representation of beauty and femininity in America versus sort of continental Europe. And European art often depicted the full figure. It was a little less puritanical in terms of poses and exposure of skin. Um, so Raphael Kirchner was definitely an early pinup artist, and in fact, because the height of his work coincided with has the giveaway actually run? I'm not sure that the giveaway ran. So I'm going to start the giveaway again. All right, now the giveaway is running. There we go. The giveaway is running. Sorry about the mess up there. So we've got 3 swap cards for the winner of the first giveaway. So I'm going to be showing you a really special piece of Kirchner art here. This is the second series of the Kirchner album. The first series I have sold many pieces of here on Whatnot. The second series is rarer, very hard to find. These were printed in by a gallery in England, and so when you find them in the States, they've been imported basically. So I have gotten this from England, and the second series is 12 images that were printed of Kirchner art, and you can see just how beautiful, romantic, atmospheric. There's a romantic kissing moment. Um, there's actually a nice little essay in here about the Kirchner girl. But you can definitely see that now we have, the exposed shoulders and arms. There will be other times when we'll actually see, oh, I mean, there's a nymph-like image that's definitely got the Art Nouveau feel. Here we have our legs up to the knee. We've got some slight undress there. And there we go. There's a bathing beauty. So these are gorgeous pieces. Um, to give you an idea, this piece being as rare as it is, typically this album can sell upwards of $250 to $300 in the US. So I have to be careful with it. This one has somewhere. This is the famous Cupid series. There are other Cupid images. In fact, in the sort of the Cupid series, Cupid starts off by wounding the woman, shooting an arrow through her heart. But later on, she starts to capture and wound Cupid back. So this confident woman, you can see, is setting fire to the wings of the Cupid. Yes. So now Kirchner was most active in the 1910s, and his work was extremely popular with British and American soldiers in World War One. Um, the the thing that we see in the Kirchner girl, as we just saw in the pieces that I just showed, obviously there's the elegant and very graceful poses. There's very stylized beauty. The women have very refined features, large expressive eyes, very slender figures, um, very much connected with some of the Art Nouveau image, like we could see in that sort of river nymph image. If I could find that again. I mean, he is thought of as an Art Nouveau artist, but that piece really captures it. Um, and the women are also dressed in highly fashionable, stylish clothing that were like on point for the fashion of the time. This this book was actually published in 1916 posthumously. So he died. Kirchner actually died right at the height of his work. Became ill, and so we never really got to see what would become of his, developing artistry. Um, so it's kind of frozen in time and beautiful. You will find, those of you who are postcard collectors know that Kirchner postcards are extremely expensive. They can be 50, 60 or more for a good postcard. Another significant artist of that same period is Suzanne Meunier, whose works are very similar to Kirchner in their sort of Parisian style. And I have an example here of one of her images, La Baine de la Parisienne, from a series. I think I got this from Jen. Um, so this La Baine de la Parisienne series, which is basically a bath of the Parisian woman, um, it was actually a postcard series that showed a woman progressively bathing in the nude. So she takes off her clothes, she gets in the water, she's bathing herself off, and now we're selecting the winner, and it's Vintage Vibe Treasures is winning the swap card, or the swap cards, the three swap cards that are shown there. So congratulations on that. Um, we can actually sell this card while I'm sitting here. I'm not going to be doing a lot of selling today, but I mean, I'm showing it. This is not I want to be very clear, this is not the original 1910s postcard. This is a reprint. So I'm just going to run it at like $2 and go and just see if this is just to have it. It's still vintage. It's not a new postcard. It's probably from maybe the 50s. Um, but it's just a beautiful image to have for your collection if you love beautiful imagery. Yes, Kirchner, if you're a card collector, a postcard collector, Kirchners are treasures. And that, as I said, this is not a Kirchner. It looks very much like a Kirchner. It's actually a Suzanne Meunier, who had a very similar style and was working concurrently. All right, Vintage Vibe Treasures. Congratulations. You'll get the postcard. Um, let's move on. I got to watch my time here. So what happens next? Well, we're now up to the 20s and 30s, and we start to reach the rise of the cover girl and the centerfold. Um, Pinups really started to find their way into the cover work, cover illustration. You see it in things like um, sheet music covers and also magazines. So in the Buy It Now, I do have a couple really great examples. I'm going to show them a little up close here, just so that people can see and enjoy them. I see one of them. Where's the other? There you are. Okay. So these are Judge magazines. Judge and College Humor were very popular in the 20s. And this is kind of what they would do. Thank you for the gifting. So this is Judge magazine. These are highly collectible. They used different artists for every cover. And they are, I mean, even if the illustrations aren't pinup, they're all considered very desirable collectible magazines. They're funny. They have lots of comics on the inside, humorous articles. So it's got a lot of the zeitgeist of the 20s and 30s. Um, it's So in this case, we see that we have this relatively demure um, woman, but we also see that the way that they've played with it by using a backlit image of her legs. So the light is shining through her dress, and we can see undergarments and her legs. This is in the bin for purchase. Um, the things that are in the bin that are more expensive, what I did with the bin is I tried to show people roughly what the retail prices for these things are. So you kind of know, if you're interested in being a collector, kind of what the price ranges are to be a collector of these items. But I will consider reasonable offers for today's show. So, if you are interested, this might be a time to get a little bit of a deal on one, or you can wait around on Whatnot to see if somebody offers one up for auction that you can grab. Here's the other judge that I have for sale, and this one is really sought after because of the, very early bathing beauty with fully exposed legs and shoulders. So this one is called The Last Shows of Summer. Um, College Humor was a magazine at that time. You also saw a lot during this time period. You see the emergence of things like the True Confessions magazines and the early romance magazines, the beginnings of pulp, all of which use that kind of imagery. Um, the other artist who emerges at this time, and you're going to hear this name a couple times in today's show because, well, first of all, they were influential for a very long time. He was influential for a very long time, but also because I happen to like him a lot, and that is Rolf Armstrong. Rolf Armstrong was famous as a cover girl artist in the 20s, and his women were slightly exotic, captivating. He focused a lot on face, a lot on um, here we go. So these are his, these glamorous ladies that he was well known for making in the 20s. And you will find, and here's a College Humor cover that he did right there. The best comedy in America. So always be on the lookout. A bolo here is to always be on the lookout for that very dramatic signature with the stylized R and A. Um, Almost always, I mean, you don't find a lot of mediocre Armstrongs. His work is just exquisite almost every time he put the uh, put the brush to a canvas. And we'll come back to Armstrong a little bit later. But the other thing then that happens is, this we see the emergence of the girly magazine during this time period, and uh, the big moment is when Esquire comes along and establishes itself as the men's magazine and puts several pinup artists on the map. And those are household names. Those are names that, if you're interested in pinup at all, you are aware of, such as the original Petty Girl, who was there at the launch of Esquire and was an immediate sensation. When Petty started to have disagreements um, with Esquire, he was ultimately replaced some years later with Vargas, and Vargas, in his own right, became a very successful pinup artist. And oh my goodness, my Vargas and Petty examples, I think I left them in another room. So give me just a second and I will find some examples here. Um, I know I have. I mean, many of us in the room don't need reminders of what they look like, but here we go. Here's your Petty Girl. This is a little less dressed Petty Girl than we would typically see. She's often a little bit more clothed than this. But one of the things you'll note is that he has very distinct. Petty was known for exaggerating features. His women often had legs that were double the length of an actual human female's legs. Um, but they all had a kind of joie de vivre. Vargas liked to make his women a little less playful and a little more sensual. And there's Vargas, but you can see that there's a kind of Esquire girl style that is in common with both of them. In fact, both of these women were laying there talking on the phone, which was a common motif for the models in this time period. I guess women were thought to be sitting around and talking on the phone. Um, so then you see the rise of not only these as centerfolds in the magazines, but then also the you know of the calendar art, which calendar art had been around for a while. Women on calendars had been around for a while, but then these became really popular and could be sold, en masse. Men wanted to have the annual Esquire calendar. They could be a desk calendar or a wall calendar, and they were marketed directly. They were sold as Esquire items, not done as advertising for other brands and companies. Thank you for all the hearts. I really appreciate it. I want to take a pause. I've been talking a lot for a while now. We've kind of gotten up to the period where we start to talk about the really well-known, um, like conventionally thought of pinup art in the 1940s. But I wanted to kind of take a moment to sort of see if there are any questions, comments that people want to have, additional thoughts. I mean, if any of you out there are experts um, on pinups and think you want to add a point or more to the conversation, I would certainly welcome that. Also, when I get to the end, if there's any time, I'd be happy to show things that are in the Buy It Now so that people can see a little bit more. Hey, hey, Andrew in Vintage Color, you just unlocked your bronze. Thank you very much for the random gifting. Okay, now we get to the 40s. And realistically, this is a this is a transition that's continuous through time. So it's not like, I mean, Vargas really was the 40s as well. Petty spans the 1930s and 40s. Vargas continues on through the 50s and starts doing uh, centerfold work that's um, more explicit for Playboy later on in his career. He kind of got the boot from Esquire because he was fighting about how much money he should get for his artwork. And so they finally just said, fine, you can go. And they replaced him with Al Moore and others, Fritz Willis, who, kind of stepped in and then became the artists of the 50s. Thank you for the tip. Thank you for the tip. BB2 isn't here today, but he is going to be helping with the packing and shipping. So for all these gifts, so absolutely the tips will be going to BB2. He'll be back for our show tomorrow. So now I want to talk about Brown and Bigelow, the advertising Goliath of the 1940s and on. All tips go to BB2. Yep. Thank you for the tips. Um, Brown and Bigelow was a company that was not in New York City. It's not the Mad Men that you would think of from advertising. This was a St. Paul, Minnesota company, and they did publishing. And they were known originally for publishing calendars, but as time went on, they were advertising calendars, right? So companies that wanted to use them as giveaways or premiums to their customers, they could, get their calendar with their names printed on them. And Brown and Bigelow then commissioned the most famous pinup artists of the time. Oh, thank you for all these tips. They're so nice. BB2 will be so happy. It's a tip train. Appreciate it. One of the so so they commissioned works from top artists of the time period, and over time they had certain artists who were their most popular. And because this was advertising, people would could order their corporate logo or their identity um, on items for sale. So you can see here both of these would have been from Brown and Bigelow. Brown and Bigelow could sell decks of cards, and they might come in a box that had your company's name on it or had some kind of a message, or you could just give them away. But in other times, you could actually have them customized to have your business name on them. And so they did the decks of cards, they did that calendars, they also did other kinds of publishing like these little notepads. So you can see this was advertising for Waukesha Foundry Company, and it had a little calendar in it and um, some blank note paper. And I have a set of these from artist Earl Moran in the Buy It Now. Um, as I said before, you have Gil Elvgren, and so the Brown and Bigelow had a number of artists that worked for them at different times, but they had are known today. Oh, they sold in the bin already. Okay, well, great. I'm glad that they sold. Somebody's going to enjoy those. There were the big four artists of Brown and Bigelow, and so you're going to see these names a lot in the artwork of that '40s period. There's Gil Elvgren, so Gil Elvgren here, who is one of the best known names, along with Vargas, in the pinup game. Rolf Armstrong. So we already saw Rolf, who was very popular artist in the 20s and 30s, but the styles changed. So it became less about that, highly covered up woman in the minx, with the head scarf and wrap, and became much more about the scantily clad, woman of the 40s. And he made the adaptation and became a top artist of that style of pinup. Um, and then we have uh, so we already mentioned Earl Moran, and then finally we have Zoe Mozart. So Zoe Mozart is the woman of the group, obviously. Are they always signed? Not always. Usually they are signed. Um, and you want to you'll if you look around, Elvgren, Mozart, Moran, um, and Armstrong did usually sign them, but there are a couple examples here and there where maybe the signature is missing from them. But if it was Brown and Bigelow published and not some kind of reprint or use on, like sometimes I find them on arcade cards where the signature is missing or maybe really hard or obscured to see. And let me just show arcade cards. Arcade cards are like postcards, but they don't have postcard marks on the back. They were sold in penny arcades. Um, thank you. So here are examples. These are two of Rolf Armstrong's arcade cards. There's another one. And these are signed. This one, it's very hard to see the signature down there, but you can see it's got a blank back. These are sold in penny arcade machines. You could, you know, pop in your coin and out would come a card, and it was randomly distributed from a set or a series. Um, I'm going to talk about this guy here in a second because Rolf Armstrong, because we see this girl here. This is a significant artist model relationship that kind of is a precursor then to what happens in the 50s with the famous models of like Marilyn Monroe and Betty Page. So each one of those artists has their own distinctive style. Elvgren is known for that really polished, um, very meticulously drawn, flirty image. There's a lot of charm in his work. Moran has a little bit of a softer style, a little bit more pastel. And so obviously these are all sexy, but like there's just the style is just softer and less precise. Um, Rolf Armstrong we keep seeing very vibrant, lots of deep colors, dynamic compositions. There's a lot of sort of emotional energy in the sort of you can get a sense of the woman's essence. It's not just all about her body, but there's definitely sort of like a real attention to the facial expressions and the attitude of the model. And then there's Zoe Mozart, um, who was less sexualizing than a lot of the other pinup artists, and she used herself as a model. She used photographs of herself moving around. Um, Yep, absolutely. You probably did. Armstrong's art was on a lot of sheet music, and it makes the sheet music a little bit more valuable. But if you want to collect Armstrong, that's a really great way to get in on it because sheet music generally sells for less money than say a really strong magazine cover. So that's one of the I would give that as a tip for somebody who wanted to collect some of the artwork from the 20s and 30s. Whereas like getting an Armstrong on a Judge magazine would be, or College Humor would be much more money. Um, but it does add a few dollars of value then if it's a signed Armstrong piece. Um, so one of the things I love about Mozart's women is that they're often in motion. Like sometimes they're on roller skates, or sometimes they're striding across a a street, and I love that about her. She would strut around in her studio and have somebody taking pictures of her as she moved, and she would find in her own photographs poses, and then she would either sometimes paint herself, her own face, or she would use a a different model's face on her own sort of body. Um, so my personal favorites of this time period, I mean, there's no doubt that Gil Elvgren is extremely popular. And if you're a Gil Elvgren fan, there's hardly a way to criticize you for that. I mean, really love anything you love. It's my story is always to say, whatever you love is fantastic. And but my personal favorites are Mozart, and I collect a lot of Rolf Armstrong. I think you've kind of picked up that I have a lot of. I'm going to put another giveaway here uh, three more swap cards. These are going to be three identical swap cards of this woman who's little less little less sensual in terms of the posing here, but um, I'm going to start this giveaway, and you can get in there, and you can keep one and trade the other two to a friend. Um, where was I? What artist did the full figured red head? I think her name was. Oh, yes. So this comes out of the 50s, and this was Dwayne Briers. So I actually have some Hildas here, and I could be part with these. I've got a set of four different Hildas there. Two of them are identical images, although they're advertising different companies. And so this is a form of collecting that some people do. Some people will take a single image like acute injury, and they will collect different advertisers for it. And swap cards are another great inexpensive way to get involved in pinup collecting because you can get these for $1, $2, $3. Usually you pay a little bit more for the advertising, but I have seen people with whole pages of this image with different advertisers on each card. So that is yes, Hilda is a lot of fun. She is a beloved character. Um, I am going to put these up for auction since somebody mentioned them. Um, we're going to start. I need to make $5 off the set of four if somebody wants them. So that's what I'm going to run them for. But these are charming cards. These are all advertising pieces. So we have four different companies here who are represented in these swap cards. And I see Jodalee is winning on those. Um, so I wanted to talk a little bit before we were done with about Armstrong because I think he's a really interesting um, artist and figure, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my favorite part of Armstrong. Yes. Oh, and by the way, there will be a buyer's giveaway that we're going to start right before we end the show. So if you're thinking about buying something in the bin, now's the time to go in there, buy something from the bin. I think if you buy a random gift, I think you're entered into it. If somebody can confirm that, if that's the way Whatnot works. Um, yes. So Dwayne Briers is the artist on these, and Jodalee won it. So congratulations, Jodalee. Um, and um, And so the thing I wanted to talk about with Armstrong is he did all this great pinup work, but what happened in around 1940 is he made a connection. He hired a young model whose name was Jewel Flowers, and Jewel Flowers was an instant sensation. She posed for a piece of artwork, and there was a moment in which she said to him, "How am I doing?" And that became the name of that first piece of artwork. It's a really well-known pinup. She's wearing a dress. That dress is very famous now. I think it's sold for massive amounts of dollars. And Jewel Flowers, although she's not really a household name today, at that time the Jewel Flowers name meant a lot, and certainly for like GIs in the 1940s, she became a well-known name. She appeared on nose art for planes, and here's Jewel, and what you can just see is she's just electric. That's what she brought out of Rolf Armstrong, and basically after he found her, he stopped painting any other models. She became his muse, and they worked together for um, over a decade, being his exclusive model. They also became incredible friends. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that she was actually his girlfriend because they traveled everywhere. They stayed over at each other's houses. But in fact, there's a possibility that Armstrong might have been gay. It's never really been confirmed, but he was a lifelong bachelor. He spent a lot of his time hanging with people who were much younger than him. He did a lot of partying. He was the host and musician for a lot of parties and was always surrounded by people. And around 1946, Jewel Flowers got married, and her husband and she and her husband traveled with him, and he was fully integrated into their relationship. But they were constant companions. 30 seconds in the giveaway. Let's get in there. We only have a few more minutes before we move on. Um, so I love Jewel Flowers. The two images that I showed you before on arcade cards, which by the way are the other way that I would recommend if you are interested in collecting pinups, arcade cards of the 40s images. So this is Jewel Flowers. Remember I mentioned her before? She's just cute. She's the girl next door. She's very alluring. And Rolf loved her, and it just showed up in the work. Whoops. Here goes the giveaway, and it's going to be Flippin' Roo getting those swap cards. All right, and the final buyer's giveaway, which I'm going to set up and start now, is going to be for this is not old, it's vintage, but not original period. We've got this lovely print of a Petty Girl, that was from a calendar. So if you were a buyer already, you can sign up for the buyer's giveaway, which is going to be running until shortly before the end of the show. Hey, there's In a Violet World. So that's what I really wanted to share about the history of the the pinup art from that period. What happens starting in around 1950 is you see the rise of the photographic model. That's where you get Betty Page emerges and other sort of celebrity models, and of course, then you have Playboy emerges in the mid 50s. Um, oh no, redraw. Um, I don't know what that meant. Um, yes, gift or shop from the bin to enter the giveaway. The and then photography basically took over the industry, and it became a lot harder for a lot of these illustrators to make a living, so they started moving to other kinds of commercial pieces. So you'll start to see in the 50s a lot of them transition to doing things like Ice Follies covers. This is Fritz Willis. There was just less demand because the market demand was for the photographic pinups, and which became more and more explicit as over time. um, and so this artwork kind of faded out, and it has reemerged. There's been sort of revivals through time. You've probably seen that in the 90s. There was a big revival. Um, yeah, so that's really it. I probably have a few more things to say. There's a whole bunch of stuff about why pinups became so important in the 1940s. The military basically shoved them down like the GIs. They gave them tons and tons of free pinups because they were worried about the men not feeling virile, being homesick, and not and also succumbing to venereal disease, for which there really weren't good medications at the time. So they gave the GIs tons and tons of pinups, and that actually they think a lot of kind of inspired men's interest in pinups even more, so that like set this table for um, uh, we're going to draw the winner here for the buyer's giveaway. Here it goes, and it's going to be TMD. Thank you, TMD, for your purchase, and congratulations on the giveaway. So that's, yes, I'm exasperatedly sort of saying my final few words. But there we go. They really wanted men to like be inspired and think of the girl that they were going to return home to, and then they came home super sexed up and ready, and they started the baby boom, and that's American history, baby. All right, it's 5 o'clock. Let's go off to talk to learn more about pricing photos with Vintage View. Thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with me, folks. Let's go.
Together again. Hopefully I can teach people a thing or two, maybe help some resellers out with valuing their photos. The other option is you're always welcome to just ask me. Lots of people do, and it's fun. I have fun doing it. So you're more than welcome to just ask. But hopefully I can give you some tools tonight to actually help you figure out some things on your own. Why not? Well, we're going to do a giveaway. Oh, I didn't even make a giveaway. So I'm not going to waste any time on, well, I guess I can add one real quick and try and talk while I'm adding. But yeah, I'm going to, first I'll go through and I'll tell everyone, I'll show everyone the basics of photography, starting from the dawn of it, starting from the daguerreotypes, and going up through to snapshots. And as we go, I'll teach you how to properly value them to make it so you can, do what you do better. We're all in this together. All right. Just trying to throw together a quick divvy up here. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the delay. Welcome in, folks. I know, I wish you could too. All right, I think I got it. There it is. Woohoo. We're going to start the giveaway. The giveaway is this. I'm only doing one giveaway because I don't want to have to deal with doing another one of those. But the giveaway is going to be 4 photos, 4 different types of photos, as a matter of fact. This awesome tintype of this great mustached guy, the 2 gals and their guy in the middle, nice snapshot there, a CDV photo, carte de visite, of these 3 young men, and a lovely real photo postcard of this lady. You're going to get all that for the giveaway. It's yours for free, just for hanging out. Now, let the education begin. All right, now most of you probably know what a daguerreotype is, but if you don't, it's a photo that is on a polished sheet of copper. They put a silver coat on copper, they polish it to a mirror finish. I'm not talking, a lot of people will show me an ambrotype and go, no, it's got a mirror finish. Look, when you turn it, it like does things. I'm like, no, that's not a mirror finish. I'm talking mirror, like you can see my face in it, like that. That's mirror. Daguerreotypes have a mirror finish. This is a handsome young gentleman. This is an early one, 1840s daguerreotype here. It's a case, but it's not attached. But yeah, just a nice little something like this in this condition. It's not in bad shape. It's just got some tarnish. Something like this would go in the $40 to $60 range on average. This would be considered a lower end average tintype or daguerreotype. Then you would move on to something like this, which is kind of another step up. Once you start getting into lovely ladies, the values go up a little bit. This isn't a super valuable one either because it does have a couple of condition issues. You can see that spotting that's inside the glass. So condition does matter when it comes to valuing daguerreotypes. But she's a beautiful young lady, and she'd be in the $50 to $70 range. They do have daguerreotypes that are all the way down in the $20 range. They're just beat up, and then you get to something like this. It is absolutely tack sharp, in immaculate condition. This is an exceptional condition and quality daguerreotype. Something like this would go in the $100 range to $120 normally. It's essentially a perfect capture of this couple. So sharp. These images get so sharp. You can make out the lines on their face, and sometimes, depending, you can even see the pores. I think most of those are in the shop. If anyone wants any of them, I did price them. Do we have any questions on valuing the daguerreotypes? Now, different things can add more value or take away value. As I had mentioned, condition can have quite a bit to do with it as well. So if there's dents, dings, scratches, scrapes, if it has marks on it in any way, I'm at 354 Main Street in Denver, PA. That's where I am. That's the address. But yeah, any condition issues can detract from the value. Now, once you get into the exceptional daguerreotypes, we're talking thousands of dollars. They need to be truly exceptional in some matter, usually amazing tinting or amazing subject matter. When it comes to photo and photo valuation, subject is a huge, huge thing. Like a gold miner daguerreotype is going to sell. The case doesn't matter as much unless you're talking lower value images. These cases, the thermoplastic cases, they go for, in the $25 to $50 range on average. Some are rare, and some can be worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But most of the cases you find are worth $25 to $30, and you're more paying for the case than you are the photo. Now, when you get to these kind of cases, yes, the case has some value, but it's not what you're really paying for when it comes to the image. Yeah, cases used to bring a lot of money, but now nobody cares. Nobody cares about the book. Nobody cares about any of that. And let's see, who just got that Givey? Shamir. There you go. You got the Givey, Shamir. Thanks for hanging out. See, now, yeah, finding a John Quincy Adams daguerreotype, that's going to bring hundreds of thousands of dollars, especially in today's market. Exceptional daguerreotypes are bringing crazy money in today's market. And as I said, if you ever have get a daguerreotype that you think is really amazing, feel free to send me a photo, and I'll help you out. I can at least let you know what it's worth in today's market. And I tell people when I buy things, I'm paying half of what I'm going to sell it for. So if you wanted to sell it for me and, at that half mark, I'd be perfectly okay with it. But I don't ever pressure anyone, and, it's not really what I care about. Now we will move on to some ambrotypes. Now, ambrotypes, removing them from the case can damage them if you aren't careful. I do not suggest removing them from the case unless unless you've done a lot of experimentation with really crappy photos so that you didn't damage any good ones, essentially. One thing I use when taking them out of cases, this is the Power Grip. It's by Woods. It's the Power Grip. It has a release and a catch grab, but you stick it on there and you can pop it right off. has a good grip. I'll check this one out. Some little kid drew in there, or guy drew in there, but that's pretty cool. And that's one of the reasons why you actually pop them out, because sometimes there's cool little things in there. You can buy them online. You can buy everything on Amazon. But they are like, this is a 9th plate amber type. Generally, the smaller sizes do not bring as much money when you get into the 6 plates and quarter plates. Bigger is better usually when it comes to cased images. Bigger is going to bring more money on average. Now, this would be a nice normal $20 to $35 amber type here. It's sharp, good image, not damaged, but it's nothing really special. Just a nice image, a nice portrait. Then you get into one where the case adds some value. Now, not only does the case add value, but it's a beautiful young woman. Okay, and it has the Relivo style background where they painted the background around the image. But this is also a wonderful case in excellent condition, 9th plate. And this beautiful young lady in this, it's called the Woods Power Grip tool. That's what it is, the Woods Power Grip. But this beautiful young lady would go normally in the $75 to $90 range in that case. Then we go to a very nice mother-child image. This is a larger plate. This is a 6th plate, but it's in a half case, and it's an odd uncovered half case. You can actually see all the wood. Something like this would go in the $50 to $60 range, based on content more than anything. The nice mother and child image. The rest of it doesn't really factor in as much. It's just a very nice mother and child. What is what case? This is called a thermoplastic case. It's made out of compressed sawdust and a kind of a tarry glue type of thing where they superheat it and press it together. It's called thermoplastic case. Then we've got something like this, where you start getting into the better images. The looks on their faces, they're both dressed exactly the same. They look like straight out of The Handmaid's Tale. Just a really great content image. That one's about content more than anything else. You can see the case isn't in great shape. It is intact. It's got a repair on it, but it is an intact case. But something like this would go in the $100 to $120 range. But yeah, it's a beautiful image. Now, I don't have any exceptional cased images right now because honestly, when I get them, I sell them quickly. The exceptional images sell immediately, so I don't keep them around because I'm in this business to sell things and I sell them. But exceptional amber types can bring tens of thousands of dollars. Again, minors, occupationals, buildings and places, outdoor ones, larger ones, half plates and full plates. They're completely different things, and there is no such thing as a gutta percha case. There is no such thing. None of these that you see like this are ever gutta percha. It's a completely different process. It's a completely different thing. And these cases were never made out of gutta percha. So anyone you see saying gutta percha case, they're wrong. It's not an opinion. It's not anything like that. It's a pure fact. You can look it up. Google is your friend. But yeah, there is no such thing as a gutta percha case. Yeah, most of these are for sale in the Buy It Now. I do have a bunch of stuff for sale in the Buy It Now. You're welcome to look in there. But that's not what I'm here for. Now, these are your garden variety tin types. Now we're getting along to tin types. We're moving along the line. These are your garden variety tin types. Garden variety tin types, they're on a very thin sheet of steel. The tin is a misnomer. They just called them that because they were light, and people are stupid. They just say dumb things and it sticks. You know, honestly, that's all it is. These are on small, very thin sheets of steel, actually. That's why they're magnetic. That's why it's easier to detect them, because if you have a magnet, they stick to it like that. So, but yeah, these are your garden variety tin types. These average in the $3 to $10 range individually. Most tin types are worth, unless they're in really bad shape, then they might only be worth $1 or so. But then you have nicer ones. Most of these, like I said, these are nice tin types. They're solid. They're in the $3 to $10 range individually. But those are your garden variety tin types. Then you get into things like this. That is actually a really sharp rainbow trout, and the guy is holding his lure, his fishing rig, and his bait casting pole. So he was probably a fly fisherman, and he's showing off his prized fly, because fly tying was a big profession back then. There are photographers who also had on their CDV photos that they sold, and fly tire. I can't remember what photographer it is, but it's a wild, wild thing. But yes, he is very proud of his fly and his fish. This is $100 plus tin type. Due to, first of all, rarity, find me another. One of my favorite things when it comes to images is find me another, But yeah, you're not going to find another guy showing off his prized fly and his rainbow trout. You're not going to find another. Then we've got, I think I just saw someone buy it. I think I saw Jason just buy it. The Civil War Soldier. That is a tin type in the thermoplastic case. It's a nice case. It's not too beat up or anything, but nice. Civil War Soldier, something like this. They go for in the $75 to $100 plus range. More if you can find out information, or if you're an expert on uniform, which I know Jason is much more versed in all things Civil War than I am, so he'll do well with that, I think. Then we have this one. This one is all about subject. Notice the little puppy dog on her lap. This adorable little girl tin type, 6th plate, holding the puppy dog. Now this one, it's all about content. That puppy dog adds so much value. Normally, a little girl sitting in a chair, $5 or $10 photo. Now, it's a $50 to $75 plus photo, because there's a little puppy dog in there. And yeah, it's an adorable image. So do we have any questions yet on other aspects of valuing? Anything else that we'd like to ask now? We're just about to get out of the cased image section. Oh, this I'll show as well. This crosses two boundaries. It's a stereo view and a tin type. This is exceptionally rare, and it shows them actually working and doing work on their farm. So it's an occupational as well. But yeah, this is an amazing piece here, and it crosses over between the stereo views and the tin types. But that's a really rare piece. Yeah, Jason, they are not common at all. When I saw it, I had to buy it, because I'm like, I have never seen one of these before, so I've got to have it. Even if I only own it for a short time, I'm going to be the guy who owned that for a little while. This is another process, guys, another cased image process. It's called an opalotype. It's an image formulated on milk glass. That is a white milk glass. And it shows these great, like almost translucent, milky white skin. They're great images, not as common as amber types and tin types and daguerreotypes, a little more rare process, but for a time in the 1860s to 18, or even late 1850s to 1880s, these were a thing. This one is in kind of a cool little frame. It's not in a case, it's actually in a hanging frame. So someone probably had this hanging up as a memorial or as a keepsake. Very cool little thing. Something like this goes in the $80 to $120 range on average. Not all opalotypes are created equally. Some are only worth maybe, I don't know, $20, $30. Some can be worth thousands if they're really exceptional. Again, when it comes to valuing images, it's all subjective. It's all what someone is willing to pay for it. And it's all about having someone that appreciates and recognizes the value in it and then is able to go ahead and say, yes, I believe this is worth this, and this is what I'm selling it for. And eventually, there will be someone that agrees with that valuation. It's what it comes down to with photography, because almost all of these, not all, I won't say all, but almost all of these are unique images where there's only a few of them out there. So it's not like you can just go out and find another one. So yeah, it's a very subjective thing, and one little thing in a photo may bring them to tears, or may fill them immensely with joy, or whatever. But yeah, it's a very artistic thing. I look at photography as art, and that's how I value it and how I sell it. And it's also how I pick what's good. I think I have a pretty decent eye for art. So, I value my own judgment in art, and I run with it. Um, we'll get up to a kind of a funky thing here now. I just want to show you something you don't see every day, just because it's fun and it's weird. This is a microscope slide photograph. Okay, they were doing these in the 1800s and early 1900s. That tiny little thing is actually a photograph of the Ten Commandments. That is a real photograph. The only way to view it is under a microscope, under like 1,000 times power, just to be able to see it and read it. But it is a legitimate photograph of the Ten Commandments. Just a fun and funky thing. Most of these sell in the $30 to $100 or $200 range, depending on what it is. That one is a mid-range one. It's not super cool. It's not super lame. It's, kind of in the middle. So, so it falls in the middle. But just kind of a fun little thing that you don't get to see every day. Then we've got things like stereo views. And there's so many things, and Carrie later is doing an entire thing on stereo views, but I'll just kind of speak on valuing them more than anything else. When it comes to stereo views, generally, it's not 100% accurate, because there are some Underwoods and some Keystones and some of the mass-produced ones that have some serious value, like $50, $100 plus serious value individually. So it's not a set in stone rule, but usually these gray mounts are worth a little less than your yellows, your tissues. These mounts that are flat, the flat gray mounts, and the oranges. You generally, and there's also like a bluish green that they can be as well. But usually your older ones and your better ones are going to be on these mounts. The orange, the green, or the funky tissue or flat mounts. They're generally going to be your more valuable ones. I've sold individual stereo views for over $1,000. No, these are not in the buy it now, Jen. Sorry. These are not in the buy it now. These are just a teaser. Sorry, I know you want it. Because this one is awesome, isn't it? But yeah, it'll be elsewhere sooner or later. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of tease a little bit and show different valuations, because like this is better than your average stereo view. This is a, 25 to 30 plus dollar stereo view just based on the image. And that's what happens with a lot of these. Like with these, they're not completely unique, but there's a lot less of them than you think out there. They weren't massively mass produced. All right, we'll move along to the next process, which would be CDVs. It was an albumin process. I won't show that first. We'll start with the cheap stuff first. Oh, thank you for the tip. CDVs. Your low-end CDVs will have wear, fading. Like you can tell it's a lovely lady, nice dress and everything there, but she's a little faded. These are like your $1 and $2 CDVs. Nothing really special going on. A little bit of condition issues and things like that. The monkey fox. We'll show him close, and I'll prove to you it's a fox. But like these are your $1, $2. There you go. The seller was selling it for $2. Then you get into one step above that. Okay, you got your $3 to $10 ones. Like beautiful seated lady, better condition, has that nice little shawl. That's actually a collected thing. Women with shawls is a collection thing as far as CDVs go. Lovely lady here. Notice the photo album there. People collect the ones with photo albums in them. Just a big burly man. He's a good $3 to $5 one. Just a big burly guy. A very distinguished gent. He looks like he's someone important. Usually the people who look important are kind of cool, Then you got this handsome gent here with the lightly tinted pants, which is so weird. But those are a little bit better. They're better than $1 or $2. They're the $3 to $10 ones. And then you have lots in between. There's occupationals, there's places, there's beautiful images of cats, dogs, and everything in between. And then you hit the far side. You hit things like this. This is a taxidermied fox with a big pipe and a sword and his sword belt and his funny little hat. And there's provenance and information on the back about it. You're talking 1860s to 1870s here. But this is just an amazing piece and proof that, they were finding ways to be silly with photography even back then, even before the snapshot. They were like, how can we just be goofy? And this is how. But yeah, this is a $400 to $600 image right here. This is when you start getting into the upper levels of photography, when it's weird and wonderful, and weird and wonderful sells. He is a very swashbuckling fox. I agree. But that's your upper level of things like the CDV. Then you start moving along, and we get a little bit later on, and you've got your cabinet photos. Now, your typical cabinet photos, it was a fox. I mean, it could be a coyote, but I think it was a fox. Then you've got these are your average cabinet photos, okay? The $3 to $5 cabinet photos, nice image, might have a back mark, might not. Cool bearded guy, $3 to $5, He's actually got ID, which is nice to have. Lovely little mother-daughter image there. These are your typical cabinet photos that you find all over the place. You know, they're everywhere. Cabinet photos like this in the $3 to $5 range. We pick them up here on Whatnot for $1 or $2 a piece, you know, and then we make a few bucks here and there. But I mean, when you can pay under $1 a piece on these, it's usually a safe bet, unless they're in rough shape or just so boring and dumb that nobody would want them. But usually you're going to be able to sell cabinet photos in the 3 to 5 range and up. Excuse me, needed a drink. You get into things like adding a dog to it or adding a cat to it. Like a dog is going to add $20 to $30 value to that photo. A cat is going to add $100 to $120 in value to the photo. A lot of it is subjective, even when you get into this era of cabinet photos, because they did some goofy stuff then too. But then they did some historic things, and they started capturing history and started capturing other folks. The Sims cadets from the Bahama Islands. This is a $500 to $700 image right here. And when I throw numbers out, I actually research. There have been sold comps of this. The last one to sell sold 4 or 5 years ago for $325. And it was in way worse condition. It was actually not as interesting a pose. And yeah, you throw those things in, and you throw in the fact that there have been no other ones for sale in the last 5 years, and value goes up. You know, this is just how the market works. And exceptional photos in today's market, the exceptional stuff, when you get something that is just so amazing. Well, the rarest image I ever sold was actually ended up being a baseball card. It was a photo of Mike King Kelly. He was with the Boston Beaneaters, and he was the #1 guy in all of baseball. He was the first person to get a $10,000 contract in baseball. And it was a cabinet photo, just like this, just a cabinet photo of a guy, just like that. But it said Cap'n Kelly. He wasn't in a uniform or anything like that, just in a suit. I picked it up, I bought it, I researched, because I research a lot. If you really want to value and sell photos as a living, like as a job, you need to research. I'm on WorthPoint and I'm on eBay 2 hours a day just researching values of photos. Okay? All of the knowledge that I have isn't just, you know, picked out of thin air. It's from tons and tons of research. So that's the biggest thing when it comes to valuing photos. Research, research, research. And then eventually you get to a point where you've researched enough and you've seen enough photos at enough different values that you can start being the one doing the values. I've been selling photos for about 12 years now, full-time for 5. Then we've got another great cabinet photo again. Content. Apache, Native American, 1800s. Great cabinet photo image. But there you're talking, that's a few $100 photo. That's a $300 to $400 photo. So it comes down to content with that. Then you hit like a mid-range photo, which this is a beautiful, different sized photo. This is called a boudoir sized cabinet photo. They're generally about 5 1/4 by 8 1/4 or 5 1/4 by 8 1/2. It's a boudoir size. They're larger. They are still considered cabinet photos. It's just a different size of the cabinet photo. But this is New York City. This is a busy intersection in New York City and a huge hotel on 5th Avenue. It's got the location and everything, which is really what makes it amazing. But something like this goes for anywhere from $100 to $150 normally. It's a good mid-range cabinet photo, the upper level of mid-range. Once you get into the lower three figures, I keep almost nothing are free. There's two photos from my collection up there. One's a snapshot. One is just an amazing work of art. And yeah, I have less than 10 photos that I keep. I always keep less than 10 photos. I'm very regimented because it would be really easy for me to keep all this amazing stuff and to not sell anything and to be poor and to be homeless. So, so in the interest of my family, my wife and children, I will continue to sell almost all of the photos. Now we start getting more into snapshot era. Okay, these are a process called cyanotypes. They were an early snapshot process, as you can see, 1899 snapshots. But this whole album here is mostly cyanotypes. They're beautiful. I love the hues and the tones of the cyanotypes. But these were popular in the 1880s up to the early 1900s. They were never as popular as regular snapshots, but they're still pretty cool, and they hold a little more value than your average snapshot. Like most cyanotypes are going to be in the $3 to $20 range, like some with better content like that. The cool big group photos better, the goofing around photos better. They can be in the $20 to $30 to $40 range. And then some are just amazing, like a cyanotype of an old motorcycle or something like that can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But it's a fun process and something a little interesting you don't always see a lot. Then we have another process you don't see too much. This is the Orotone. They were popular in the early 1900s up into the 1940s and 50s. They were never hugely, wildly popular, but they're a very interesting piece, and they're actually gold. They are shiny gold photos, but they are a photographic process, and they can be really sharp and really beautiful and really pop. This is from the Century of Progress, 1833 to 1933. This was from the actual World's Fair, from the 1933 World's Fair. It was a souvenir that you could buy, a souvenir Orotone of the Electric Building. That's where they had that really cool thing with the lightning that shoots out of it and everything. Yeah, cool stuff. It's like the Moody filter. But yeah, definitely cool. The gold, and something different, something you don't always see. Then we get into things like we start getting into snapshots, which is modern photography. Now, this is where subjectivity comes into play more than anything else. With modern photography, with snapshot photography, which is probably one of the places that people would struggle the most in valuing, because you truly have to look at every piece as a work of art and as something that there may not be another of out there in existence. Now you have your better than average, but still run-of-the-mill snapshots like this. This is like a $5 nice, $5 to $7 nice Christmas snapshot. Good subject matter in that it's Christmas because, of course, everyone knows Christmas is very collectible, dated, and has some ID on the back, which is always nice as well. But every little thing that you can add to a snapshot adds value. Like if there's a guy and then, there's another guy goofing around in the background, it added value. Everything is perceived value when it comes to snapshots because there has to be someone else out there that actually finds it interesting to give it value. Because again, this is where the subjectivity comes into play. It's all about the subject, it's all about the image. So something like this would run, I would sell it in the, $2 to $3 range individually. Just a nice soldier photo. They're not super rare. Nice little beach photo there, a buck or two photo. And then you get into better snaps where it becomes really artistry. Like this. Like, look at that lighting. You can look at this if you have an artistic eye and say, that is a way better photo than the one that was before it. And then you yourself, as the person selling the photo, has to do your research. Like I said, look up and see if there's any similar photos that have sold in the past. Then judge yours compared to those. And if yours is better, add value. If yours is worse, deduct a little. There is a science, essentially, to valuing things and to valuing photos. And I guess that's just where I kind of am with it. But that's after 2 hours a day of research for well over 5 years straight. So I probably have thousands, if not tens of thousands of hours of research in on this, probably enough to get a doctorate on researching photographic value. But then the other thing with that is someone can come along and their love for that photo can be so strong that all normal, grasps of value are thrown out the window and they're willing to pay anything for it because it means that much to them. And that's the other part of photography, is it can really just hit you. You can look at a photo and it can floor you. And it's really a wonderful thing because photos are art. Now, this is another one that has a lot going for it. This is a far better than your average snapshot. You look over here, cool, we got a handsome young guy, you got some photos on the table. That adds some value because there's photos there. Then you've got fun, funky cutout photos on the wall, really cool. Then you have the mirror image of the photographer actually taking the photo. I mean, this has so many things going for it. It's an absolutely bonkers, it is a bonkers snapshot. I would value this in the $75 to $100 range for a snapshot, just because it has it checks so many boxes, and it's a find me another one kind of image. But then I have my collection, almost no value at all to anyone but me. I would never sell that photo, ever. $10,000? Nope, not happening, because it means so much to me. So yeah, that's what it really comes down to. When it comes down to it, in the end, all photo values are subjective unless it's a mass-produced photo and you can go and say this exact photo is sold for this exact amount, which you should do on a regular basis. Research. That is the key to everything. But yeah, my two photos up there, one of them is of a dog at its owner's funeral. That's all it is, but to me, it's a lot. Then we have this amazing, just artistic, the colors, and seeing this on camera is nothing compared to seeing it in real life. The colors really pop. There's no actual nudity. There's no nipple. There's no actual nudity in this, but it is just this most beautiful pile of bodies, and it's just a stunning image. And I was blown away when I saw it, and I said, I'm going to keep that. And it's got nothing to do with sex or anything. It's just pure beauty. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you guys coming to my TED Talk. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to raid into Millicent's memories. And she's going to teach you some stuff about postcards, I believe. So we're going to go ahead and raid on over to Millicent again. Thank you very much for hanging out. Hopefully, I gave you some information. And always remember, feel free to reach out if you have a question. I'm always here for you. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. You guys have a fantastic night and peace out. Here we go.
Talks. Yeah, ephemera talks is what we're talking about. Haha. It's a time for us to learn from one another and to share what we know. And I am Melissa with Millicent's Memories, and I'm just excited to be able to be with you tonight and share with you some knowledge that I have learned through a variety of sources. A little background about me. I am a retired educator. I do have a history major. I taught a little bit of history, more English than history, though, and I did end as an administrator, a building administrator, when I retired. And I'm so excited that about 5 years ago, I started collecting postcards. And then about 3 years ago, I started whatnot selling, including some of my postcards. And of course, I still buy and sell postcards. So I'm excited to be with you. And I know that the chat is absolutely full of postcard experts, okay? But let's remember that for my talk tonight, we're just really focusing in on what we can learn about postcards regarding our history and our culture at the time they were produced. Okay, so that's a very narrow focus. We're calling it Exploring Postcards as Time Capsules. Okay, that's my big fancy title. Okay. Oh, thank you for getting that bite. Now that's awesome. Gift, bloop, bloop, bloop. That we love to hear that blooping. Again, I know that you're experts. I know that there was a lot of things we could talk about today, but let's keep it just very narrow. Okay. Some disclaimers and other caveats. My presentation is based largely on my own knowledge and my own experience with postcards. Okay, it's may not be your experience, so you may want to add some things in the chat. Feel free to do that. Always feel free to add in the chat anything that you want to that's related to our topic. There is no way this can be a comprehensive talk in 45 minutes. No way. As a matter of fact, I'll be surprised if we even get through with what I have planned, because that's just how comprehensive any little one postcard can be. Okay, we can spend lots of time on any one postcard, but I'm excited to try. I'm excited to try, guys. So it's more of like a survey, and it's a very narrow survey. I have chosen certain events over other events. I will not mention some historical events that you're like, why is she not talking about that? Well, because something had to be left out. Okay, so don't shoot the messenger if I happen to not talk about, let's say, prohibition very much, because I'm not. I'm not talking about temperance and prohibition, because that's a huge topic that could have taken its own 45 minutes. I've chosen to talk about patriotism and nationalism and some other things that you'll see in the presentation. Now, RPPCs are so important to postcard sellers and collectors. That's real photo postcards. I have chosen not to use them in my presentation, except for maybe one. I think I've put one in the presentation, because we have Vintage View and Historian Emporium talking about photos. And so I didn't want to get into what they were talking about so much, because I can't wait to learn more from them. Just like I did from Vintage View earlier, I'll be watching Historian Emporium to find out more about RPPCs. So also, I'm not going to cover holiday postcards as much as you'd probably like. They will be mentioned, they will be shown, but not in the detail probably that you might like. Because again, we're focusing on history. And yes, we can learn history from those holiday cards, but they lend themselves more to the secular cards, let's say. So that's all my caveats, okay? Questions are absolutely welcome in the chat, but if you know me at all, you know that I get caught up in with my cards, and I may not see your question. You may have to ask me 50 times, or you may have to personal message me later, and that's fine and dandy too. Okay, if I can offer any help at all to you about anything, I am more than happy to do so. I will not have any auctions today. We just don't have time for that. But if you feel the need or the desire to get into the buy it now and give to other people or buy for yourself, that would be fantastic. But there is absolutely no pressure to do so. Absolutely not. You do it if you want to. There will be 6 giveaways in the presentation, and we'll get into that in just a minute because they're pretty cool giveaways. Got to take a drink of water already, guys. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, so I apologize if my voice sounds a little bit hoarse today. Okay, we will be rating Paperboy at 5:30, so we have to get with it. Okay, so again, exploring postcards as time capsules. Next item, very important to note. These are the eras, postcard eras, and yes, I have my source because all good educators always include their source. As a matter of fact, I wish that I was able to develop a multimedia presentation and screen share with you instead of just doing what I'm going to have to do tonight because, it's just easier. But I am showing you my own postcards or postcards that I have owned in the past that I have printed, okay, on paper for you to see. So I didn't borrow anyone else's for this one, guys. These are all ones that I either own now or have owned in the past. So this 1870 to 1898 is called the pioneer period for postcards. That's because it's a little bit willy-nilly. Some people had some for certain reasons. Postal cards might be issued by the post office on occasion. 1873 is given as an alternate date because of the government postal issues that I just said. 1893 is often given as the first postcard era because that's the World's Columbian's Exposition, and that is what we commonly call the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Now, here are some cards. Yes, I'm showing you cards from the 1893 Chicago World's Fair or the Columbian Exposition. Yes, look at this. I have 6 of them. Is anybody getting a clue? I have 6 from 1893. No, they're not from 1893, guys. They are reproductions, okay? They are reproductions of those original cards from the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893. This is a very good way to start our little talk today because if one thing we learn about postcards, anything that happened special in a community or a state or a nation was always documented by postcards. So these big expositions that were so popular in the late 1800s and early 1900s are absolutely going to be major topics. So your 6 giveaways tonight, guys, you're going to get one of these if you win a giveaway. So that's going to be special. It's a reproduction, but it's still really, really nice to have one. So let's get our first giveaway started. Okay. Let's get that first giveaway started. I probably will not show you these again. You'll just know that when there's a giveaway running, you should get in and you'll be getting one of these in the mail. Okay? So hop in, and please remind each other to get in. We'll just let the time run until they're done. Then we'll do another one, etc., etc. Okay, what we're really going to start with, though, I really have some authentic private mailing cards. Okay, 1898 to 1901. We're going to go then to the undivided back period, 1901 to 1907, the divided back period, 1907 to 1915. Talk briefly about the white border period, 1915 to 1930, and then a little bit more about the linen from 1930 to 1945. I will not be addressing chrome, which is 1939 to the present. Golly, that's another big presentation that somebody else needs to do, right? Because there's nothing wrong with Chrome cards. They're fabulous. But I tend to focus on the ones produced before the Chrome era. Now, because I'm a teacher, I have to ask the class a question. The originals are super rare, Schmidt. If you find one, please let me know. If you find one in good condition, please let everybody know. Okay, so so here's the question, class, and I would accept any answer in the chat. Okay, and try to be serious, Annie. You all know the answers. That's why I'm asking. When is the golden age of postcards? And there's some answers here. You could choose some here. When is the golden age of postcards? Yeah, you can go to the bathroom. Get the hall pass on the way out. When is the golden age of postcards? 1910 is included. The divided back period is absolutely included. Yeah. When does it begin? 1907, absolutely. That is the usual date. Now, if you got online and you ask the question, when is the golden age of postcards, you're probably going to get 30 answers. Some will begin in 1905, some will run to 1920, but most postcard experts, or those that deal with postcards quite a bit, agree it's the divided back period until the beginning of World War I. This is the time when the quality of the cards was incredible. The new color techniques were being developed. The subject matter was so wide. Everything in the world was covered in postcards, and we had a thriving middle class in the United States of America. They were mostly literate, especially in the cities, and they loved postcards. Oh my goodness. The reason it's the golden age is you just couldn't put enough postcards in people's hands. Okay, so we learned that the Germans were the best at postcard making during this time. And why did we then end the golden age? Why does it stop around 1915? Another question. Aha, you got it there, Schmidt. Yeah, the war. It wasn't very nice to import the German products anymore. Plus, they didn't make them anymore. They were all about the war effort. So, even though a lot of postcards were designed in the US, they had been printed in Germany, but the very best ones had always been designed and printed in Germany. So, what were we going to do? Oh, my goodness. So, what resulted was what we call the white border, and we'll look at those later. Basically, as the title indicates, there was a white border around the card. It was no longer the color, no longer filled the card, and they were made usually more cheaply, not always, but usually more cheaply. And American companies did the best they could. Okay, now there are still fantastic cards that are white border cards. I would never sneeze at them. I like to get them when I see them. Okay, but it's just not the same as the golden age. Okay. So then the white border era ends around 1930, although you'll see some produced through the mid 30s. And we begin to have what I really love, the vibrant colors of the linen cards. And they officially run through the late 1940s. This cuts them off about 1945, but they go a little bit later than that. You can find some all the way up to about 1960. But the chromes took over in the 40s for sure. Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Mighty Annie, I love it. That's your definition. You stick with it. You stick with it, girl. I'm not here to try to change your mind. Okay, we've lost people, man. We had 30 people. Now we've got 14. That's too bad. All right, so let me get started with looking at some private mailing cards. This is what a private mailing card looks like on the back. Okay, this one happens to have not been posted. Okay, which is really nice. And these were produced obviously by private individuals or private companies or private organizations, and they were authorized by 1898 congressional action. The winner of the first is Ferrari. You are the winner, Ferrari. Thank you so much. Now, but I'll go through this card before we post the next giveaway. This is the official souvenir mailing card of what? Well, it's right up here. And you can't see it, and I can't either. I have to pull it back here. It's the 1901 Pan American Exhibition in Buffalo. Exposition. The 1901 Pan American Exposition in Buffalo. Again, all these cities were trying to outdo each other with their little World's Fair experiments. Okay, so this was actually produced by a lithographic company in Buffalo. It says so right there. So that's a very good example of a private mailing card. It's 1901, like it's supposed to be. So let me put that one away and look at the next one. I have 3 of them. The next one I'm sort of partial to because it's a panoramic, guys. Check it out. Yes, it's got some condition issues, but I don't mind. This is Cornell University in New York. I actually have a cousin who's attending there now, a young man from Tennessee, obviously. And it is gorgeous. I'm going to give this to him someday as a little gift, and I'm going to challenge him to tell me how different the campus is now from then. And again, that's a private mailing card. It was actually sent in 1904, but it was produced by 1901. Okay, I'm just going to be going really quickly, guys. This also is a private mailing card. And I like this one because I have a postcard that's similar to it coming up next. This is the Natural Food Conservatory. It's where you get your good cereals, okay? Home of the shredded wheat, right there at the Niagara Falls, New York. Private mailing card for that company. Remember that graphic, it's going to come up again. So, this again is a private mailing card. Then we're ready to look at your the undivided back, and undivided back means there's nothing on the back except a postmast, a stamp box, and sometimes other information here. This is only for the address. On the undivided, you could not write a message here. That's why most people wrote all over the front. This card is a hold to light card. It's the only one I have in the presentation today. I'm not going to show you that against the light, but if I did, you could see all of the light come through the windows and through the moon. This is the Palace of Horticulture at the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904. Okay, so again, we're loving our World's Fairs, our expositions. Everybody is attending. This one is not used. And then the postcard, this again is undivided back, that is like the previous shredded wheat card. Same card basically, okay, except it's a few years later. They didn't change their motif at all. They just changed it to postcard instead of private mailing card. Now, I want to go next to the prejudices and biases and racism that actually was part of the culture at the time. And I don't want to dwell on it, but I'm going to make it clear that yes, postcards were produced that did show certain groups in not so nice light. Okay, we don't like it. We wish that it hadn't been that way. But goodness gracious, guys, they produced them and they bought them. So this is an example of that. This is an Irish person, and he's depicted as somebody that's not very nice. Probably somebody's been drinking a little bit. Okay, so in that card we can see that, and again, this is an undivided back, double postmarks, which I love. But that person sent that card thinking not a thing about what that said about that young man. Okay, then another one, purely a racist card. In this case, Black Americana. It doesn't show all these young men in the best of light. It shows them in stereotypical light. Now, this one happens to be produced by Tux in England. And it's a good card, actually, very good card, but it does have some stereotypes. Again, undivided back. It was extremely popular during the undivided back period to make lots and lots of postcards of government buildings. Lots and lots. Okay, so this is an example of that one. This is the state capitol in Atlanta, Georgia. An undivided back, never posted. Also, we like to go back and look at our history quite a bit at this time period. This is an ancient burial ground in New London, Connecticut. And it has the Nathan Hale Schoolhouse and another school there. It's undivided back. We also love to say how fabulous we are at building things because we're Americans. We're fabulous. So this is the Williamsburg Bridge in New York City. Undivided back. It was produced a little bit after, I believe, the Brooklyn Bridge. And of course, recreation is so very important. So we have to have postcards about that too. This is the Steeplechase Park at Coney Island, including a Ferris wheel, which is awesome. And look at the silvering on that. That is a great card. And it's got triple postmarks. And it's just sent to Miss Charlotte Jones in Hilton, New Jersey. They didn't have, zip codes at that time. So you just hang with me, guys. We're moving as fast as we can. This is also an example of what was loved during the undivided back period, anything natural. In this case, we could get the water and something we had built. So that made us happy too. This is Hunt's Mills in Providence, Rhode Island. And that one's unposted. And sticking in Rhode Island, this is again the state capitol. And in the foreground, we have the normal school for Rhode Island. And this is cool for me because we know that normal schools are the colleges that produced teachers. Okay, so the state normal school, where all the teachers went, was right there at the state capitol. And it is sent to someone in Orange, Massachusetts. All righty. Are there any questions? Now, you haven't gone to sleep yet, have you? I'm going to move this down. Let's look at some more things that are common in the undivided back period. This is what I meant by scanning cards that I had owned previously. Let's start with the one on the right. This is produced in Utah by a Mormon publishing company, and it's like everybody wanted to know Brigham Young and who were his wives. So, it's like, again, people want to know, so they produce the card and they sell out like crazy. All right, and all the names of the ladies are listed there, and also is very popular to observe and honor our presidents. So this one ends with Teddy Roosevelt. Okay, so it's got all of our presidents from Washington to Roosevelt. And that, again, is an undivided back. It's 25 presidents at that time. So that's just an example of what you could see as far as government is concerned and as far as basically gossip is concerned. Check that out. Now you got to have a little fun, even in undivided back period. So you can put your scandalous swimsuit on and run down to the beach. Okay. I love these cards. Again, they're undivided back. The top one I just sold the other day, the last sale that I had. It is a group of young men, obviously in their scantily adorned swimsuits at Narragansett Pier in Rhode Island in the surf. And then there was this habit of publishers to make these cards. This is called a girl and a buoy, Buoy. So this is two different publishers, but they had the same motif. So this is a women's swimsuit, and this is also a women's swimsuit from the undivided back period. Okay, we're just moving right along. Let me know if you have any questions. The most popular and best leather postcards were also made during the undivided back period. And there we have some examples of that. Sometimes those leather postcards were just a little bit not politically correct. Also, like this one. It's a really nice card. Well, you great big Indians, smoke up, but it's not very politically correct. Okay. Again, people at the time would have thought, the people using the postcards at the time would have thought very little about that. Hopefully, we think more about it. Now we're going to transition from undivided back to divided back, but we're going to do it with this. And we're going to go back to one more undivided back. We have an example here of the very popular style of New Year cards in the undivided back period and the divided back period, where you slap the date on there. Very nice. Just get it on there, makes it pretty, and people will buy it. And that's exactly what they did. And I love to sell these, and I love to collect these, especially if they have a calendar on them. The last undivided back, I believe, or are there two? Well, there's just one. And then we've got another transitional slide. Love this, guys, because again, presidential candidates could, for the first time, produce postcards and distribute those as part of their campaign. And here we have two different postcards produced by the Taft campaign in 1908, showing President Taft and his Vice President Sherman. They did win the election. They served one term. Okay, so both of these are very nice cards. I've sold them at separate times over the last 8 months. And sometimes I wish I had not sold them because they are really good. Annie, how many of those did you? Thank you for the reminder about the Gibbies in the Valor world. So sorry, got excited, didn't I? Number 2's coming up. Thank you so much. Get in there. So anyway, Annie, did you get either of these cards because you're a Taft girl? Yeah, I like my presidents. I hope Annie's still here. Annie collects Taft, and I didn't know if she got these cards or not. I have no memory of it, who got them. But if you have them, congratulations to you, because I think they're fantastic. Those are real photographs in there. Okay. Now, I mentioned to you that we have to really look at what was going on in our country at the time. And at the time that we are talking about, the early 1900s, the United States had just become an empire. You may remember that we defeated Spain in the Spanish-American War in 1898 and gained lands all over the globe as a result. And that's what people wanted. There was a race among European nations to spread their colonies all over the world. So Americans thought, why can't we get on that too? The only thing is about spreading colonies where people already live is You're taking over people's lands to do that, okay? So the Spanish had already done that. With the lands that we gained from Spain were lands they had owned for 400 or 500 years already. So the only way we could keep that far-flung empire together, from Puerto Rico to Cuba to Guam to Hawaii to the Philippines, was with a strong navy. So this is an example of some of the naval ships that we had in the early 1900s. The ones that are painted white, and maybe all of these are, yes, this is the Great White Fleet, okay? Because again, you could spot an American ship literally a mile away because it was painted white. You can see these are steam driven, okay? So these are, I can name them all for you, but I won't. These are battleships and destroyers, and some of them would be seeing duty in World War I coming up soon. Okay. Any comments or questions? Get in the giveaway. Get in the giveaway. Thank you again for gifting to each other. Now, something happened in 1908 that changed the way women dressed. You're thinking, well, gosh, something happens every year that changes the way women dress. Absolutely. But in 1908, there was an operetta that was very, very popular, and it was called The Merry Widow. And one of the characteristics of the Merry Widow, the character in that operetta, was that she had gigantic hats. So then it became very popular just to make your hat as large as you can make it. Okay, so whenever you're looking at postcards from, let's say, 1908 to 1912 or so, and you see those gigantic hats, part of it's just style, but part of it's also the influence of the Merry Widow, which again was an operetta in 1908. And basically, every publisher that could produced a series of Merry Widow hats, postcards. So here we have an example. This lady cannot get into the building because her hat is too large. And I've sold many of these, and they're very popular. I wish I had bunches of them to sell. Everybody loves those. Thank you for listening to TMD. I appreciate it. Now, again, my throat's getting a little bit scratchy, but we're going to keep on going. We're going to persevere. The only RPPC I have today, because again, I want to respect the photo people, is this one. And you can see that these ladies' hats are getting pretty large. Okay. I would assume this is a mother and a daughter. It's a very nice RPPC. I like it. It is a divided back. It's ASO stamp 1904 to 1918. Perfect for the time period we're talking about. And again, they got the large plumes too. So they believe in that Merry Widow's hat for sure. Also, we're now in the divided back period where we're going to spend most of our time. They're still loving their civic buildings, guys, but look at this. Woohoo! They decided, let's put gilding all over it. Now, that's another feature that you'll see in most of the divided back postcards that they really put some time in on. Gilding. You have to have some gilding, you have to have some embossing. That's a characteristic of lots of the higher quality divided back postcards. And here again is an example of the state capitol in Lincoln, Nebraska. Different publisher. No, same publisher. Different capitol building. This is the state capitol in Montpelier, Vermont. And even today, at least when I was up there last, which was about 10 years ago, you could walk right up to there. You could park right here and just walk right into that yard. I thought that was really cool. Again, just showing you the Capitol buildings. Now, this card is interesting because it's divided back and you see that, but they've left the white strip on the bottom. It's like, hey, we forgot to get rid of the white strip. Here comes another winner. Who's it going to be? TMD. TMD. This time I'm going to remember to start another one right now. Running now. Okay. Yet one more state capitol building. Same publisher. They've left the white at the bottom, which is unusual. Now, we also loved our sports during this time period, and one of the most popular sports was boxing. And this happens to be a Bamforth comic card about boxing. Watch his right, Battler. How can I when he's always poking me in the eye with it? Again, Bamforth is one of my favorite British publishers, but this was for the American market, okay? Because we loved our boxing. We loved all of our sports, for sure. Here's an example, too, of a cityscape, particularly St. Paul's Chapel in New York City. Again, the white has been left at the bottom, which is intriguing. Okay, that way you can see the title well. What I love about it is it's a very old colonial church, and you have your graves right here. okay, with your modern skyscrapers in the background. That's a great dichotomy there. The railroad made America. But I'm not going to show you lots of train pictures and lots of railroad pictures. Instead, I'm going to show you a town that a railroad made. The Great Northern Railroad basically caused this town to be built. This is Chelen, Washington. Chelan, I don't know, Washington. But without the railroad, that town would not have been built, and that was extremely common during this time. And we have another one. It's also a railroad, well, if I turn it up correctly, it's also a railroad image. This is on the Great Northern Railroad near Scenic, Washington, showing 3 tracks. So you can see that the tracks ran absolutely through the wilderness. Can you imagine how much we owe the people who gave their lives to build that railroad? Now, again, we're thinking strong military at this time. Not only do we have a strong Navy, but we have great fort system. Okay, this is before World War I. All right, we had forts dotting the Pacific coast and the Atlantic coast. Usually in that star shape that you're familiar with if you've been on many coastal fortification tours. And these were the gigantic guns that were in place there. Because again, everybody had that great Navy, and if we had any enemies get close, we had to have artillery that could take care of that. Again, these are all divided back, these are unposted. These are gigantic guns, and again, these forts are no longer in existence, and these guns are no longer needed because we have way advanced past this. But this would have been cutting edge technology at the time. And look how many men it took just to operate one gun. Pretty amazing, isn't it? All right. It's also the height of the early industrial age in the United States of America. This is York Mills, where they're still using, this is actually a linen. This is where they would have put textile mills. But they needed the water originally when they established this company. And I'm sure they used it for something now, but look how large it is. This was employing probably children and women primarily at the time. Street views are always popular. This is a typical street view for the divided back period. This is Seattle, Washington. What's unique about that is not necessarily the wagons or the beautiful architecture, but the totem pole. So I like to show you unique cityscapes, and that's one. And it's from the Woman's World magazine. Here's another great view of a different city. This is San Francisco, California. And you can see horses and buggies, and you can see trolley cars. We don't yet see any cars here, not in this particular case. Okay, that is a PNC card, which is a very desirable publisher. Now, when you're talking about the early 1900s in America, you cannot ignore the language of flowers. The Victorians had started this obsession with flowers. And I don't mean just growing them, I mean as a symbol. Every flower was a symbol for something. If you look online, you can find probably 200 different flowers listed and what they were supposed to represent. So this is just a language of flowers postcard that was produced in Great Britain showing what sunflowers meant. But the cool thing is, if a girl liked a guy or a guy liked a girl, they could slip them a flower and not say anything, and the person would know exactly what was up. Or if you wanted to leave a certain flower with your calling card, if you were of that class to do that, then my goodness, the recipient would know what your message was. It might mean meet me tomorrow at somewhere, or it might mean I love you, or we're just friends, or just whatever the message could possibly be with all these flowers. The giveaway is in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's going now. Good luck. Yay, Makua, you won. You didn't even have to go to the bathroom to get it. Congratulations. Okay, I'm going to run another one. Yeah, Makua had to slip out to the bathroom earlier, remember? Running this fourth one, guys, so get in there. I also want to mention, let me show you this one. Flowers were so very important. Again, they just put them on everything. And this is a geranium. Excuse me, it's not a geranium, it's a geranium. Okay, and this girl's got them all over herself. So we could look up what a geranium meant, and this card, if received by someone, they would know what that meant, even if there was no message on it, which in this case there is not. Also want to point out this is the height of the Art Nouveau period. This period when we have all these natural flowing lines as borders on most of our cards. Um, and that's just gorgeous. I don't have a lot of examples. I could because I adore it so much. But I wanted to show you just one example of a beautiful Art Nouveau border. And this one happens to be on a Thanksgiving card that's gilded beautifully. And again, it's a divided back card from 1910. Speaking more on the language of flowers and Art Nouveau, here's a set of cards that I sold. And you can see that each card has a basket of flowers. They each mean something. And you can see the Art Nouveau background. Okay, so these are all from this age. Moving on, flowers are also used on a variety of greeting cards, like this set from John Winch. Not only is each heart different in this series, and each greeting different in the series, but there's different flowers too. So again, the recipient would be able to read the flower language as much as they did the English in the greeting. Now, some of you know the flowers extremely well. As I said, I don't. I can only identify like 6 flowers, period, by sight. So I think that would be something to really, really study. And if we were going to write a good novel, that'd be a good thing to include. It's like a secret coded language. Okay. Now, speaking of Valentines, not every Valentine was so pretty and traditional like that. Some were novel like this. I call these the heart heads. Okay. This is a wonderful Valentine of a common man and a common woman. They have heart shaped heads and they have a heart behind them. But it's a cute little Valentine. Just want to share that with you because I had it lying around. Again, it's a divided back. Now, when we're talking about this time period, women's fashion and beautiful women were greatly adored. Okay. And there were many artists who busied themselves putting together gorgeous postcards of beautiful women. Okay. This is Christie. Okay. Earl Christie. These are 3 cards that I sold, I don't know, a year ago. And look at their large hats and look at how ideal the women are. They are just absolutely gorgeous. And their clothing is gorgeous. One even has the dead animals on, which were so popular at the time, the furs. So this is a fantastic set of cards and very, very, very typical of the time period. Look at the necks, the high necks. Okay, so these are very nice. I would point out too that lovely ladies were sometimes pictured on postcards inside letters or inside words, and these are real photos. They had to make the real photos of the ladies and then place them inside alphabetic letters or words. I know that some of you have fantastic postcards from this time period that have your name and have the ladies inside, like Annie does and Lillian does. Maybe some people do. And I think that's just a lovely, lovely thing. You can't find my name at this time period. It's older than that. So here's another example of a series of lovely ladies that I've sold in the past. Now, these were probably originally drawn black and white, and somebody colored them in before they presented them or sold them. So the artist would have just done black and white, and then someone else colored them in. And they're absolutely gorgeous, idealistic women. Now, here's some examples of the Gibson girl. That's right. We heard about the Gibson girls earlier today. I'm going to have to scoot that back or me back one. Okay. So this is your typical Gibson girl shape, the S shape, as we heard earlier. You remember that? Were you listening to the first presentation today by BB? So these girls are strong, independent women. Again, divided back period. And these girls are athletes too. Look what they're wearing to bowl and play tennis. Is that not amazing? And whoever wrote these didn't have enough space on the back, so they had to fill up the front too. Okay, so those are some good examples. In this same series, you can find yachting women, you can find golf playing women, and other sports too. Okay, keeping up with our women, we only have 7 minutes. There's no way we're going to make it through the whole presentation, and I knew that we wouldn't. Here comes another giveaway. Nat, you won. Nat and Kid. Nick Nax, Nat and Kid, Nick Nax, congratulations. Let me get through this one and then I'll go to the next giveaway. I have to point this one out. This was also by Earl Christie. This is a Princeton postcard of obviously a Princeton lady. And This was a common thing to do. There was a series by Christie of the whole Ivy League schools, all of them. He would have had a girl for each school. There are other series that show cheerleaders from each school with banners. There are ladies for states. My particular favorite in that particular section is the Tux um, state bells, which I believe Thrifty Dotson mom got me to collecting, and I believe I got TMD exposed to those. That's basically the same kind of card. Your idealistic woman in a certain situation. This is for a college, and the Tux series is for a state. I love this card in particular. I wish I could find more like this. This is a girl, obviously dressed. This is mid teens. She's even got her hat on that's mid teens and gloves. She's got a banner. And these were printed so that whoever lived in any certain location could actually type or print their own town name right there. There were also other banner type cards. I'm sure you've seen those, the triangular shape ones that were just produced in mass and then given over to the different communities to stamp their own names on. Now, it says Mount Pleasant is crazy over the grizzly bear and everybody is doing it. Well, guess what? I didn't know what the grizzly bear was, but I could infer what it was, and I looked it up. It's a dance. In the 19 teens, people were making up dances all over the place. Okay. So you should look up the grizzly bear and see if you think you would have liked to perform the grizzly bear. Not me. I think it's a little bit too stompy for me. You've been to Cornell? Cool. Here's another set of lovely ladies, just in case you didn't get enough from what I showed you earlier. Now, getting back to some more ethnic cards, there was a movement in the early 1900s, 1910 to 1925 or so, that adored the Dutch. Everything Dutch was in vogue, from postcards to decor to your what you ate off. Everything that was Dutch was popular. This is a fantastic example of this genre because this seems to be a hand painted one. It's very different, it's very unique, and it's nothing disparaging about it at all. Okay, it's even written in what might be French or Dutch. Okay, he's got a little egg that he's giving her. All that I'm going to show you are very nice cards. They're beautiful cards. But sometimes the Dutch cards had language on them, the broken English that was supposed to be an insult. See, look at that German card. My goodness. And sometimes we still continued our stereotypes of the Irish. See, this is not a good depiction of an Irishman on that St. Patrick's Day card. And we have our broken English, supposedly imitating Japanese, in this card. I love the card, but if you like a me like I like a you is not necessarily what we would desire to hear. Even our lovely ladies could sometimes take on questionable motives. Look at those lovely Indian ladies. But are they Indian? What's the answer? Are they Indian? They are not. They are fabulous cards. I'd sell them every day of the week if I had them. I love them. But those are not Native American ladies. Those are white ladies, I'll call them for lack of a better term, dressed up as Native Americans. And they sold like hotcakes. Some companies, though, did some authentic Native American ladies. And those are some examples of that. This is Minnehaha from Detroit Publishing Company. And this one is fabulous because she has her baby and all of her gear that she uses on a daily basis. This is authentic, okay? And that's what I like to point out. There were some publishers that did not go with just the ideal, they went with the authentic. So when you've got women, and y'all know I've got a raid soon, guys, I need to get those other giveaways going. I'm not going to let this run long. When you've got women, you've got to have romance. So lots of romance cards were popular. Love this because you had your romance and the new technology of electricity. Love those. If you see the love lights, you buy them, okay? And even the romances had to be on the new technology of airplanes. All right. So we're probably going to stop with our romance cards because we're going to run out of time. Let me go quickly through these. These are some more examples of the romance cards of the period. I did not even make it to World War One. Wow. But when you've got romance, you've got babies. And so we celebrate babies with the storks, this series of storks cards. Fantastic. Just wonderful. Nash cards. And then we'll have the multiple babies that most of us collect. Okay. We love that kind of stuff. And then we have to be concerned with the babies with the murder bottles, don't we? So my goodness, that's a lot of stuff. I almost made it to the patriotic in World War One. That's not even half what I had planned, guys, but such is life. Okay? This is not the last giveaway, but I'm drawing it now. Then I'm going to run one more. Ferrari, that's 2 for you. You have won 1/3 of the cards thus far. Okay, running the last one now, guys. I appreciate you hanging out with me. I know it's boring just to listen to lecture. I'd rather do this with a group of live people, but I appreciate you so much. Thank you very much for your tips and your purchases, and buy it now. Get quickly into the giveaway. I knew that I couldn't get finished, but I thought I'd get closer than that. Thank you again, guys. I'm going to draw it and right now. Good luck. Last one. In a Violet World. See, it paid off for you to remind me a while ago. In a Violet World. Congratulations. Now let's raid to Paperboy. Here we go. Stay on the train and learn, learn, learn.
All righty. Sorry about that. Yeah, Whatnot's not doing seamlessly with the feeds through the RAID, so I have to refresh it. Tomorrow I will be going over and doing a little bit of work over on the channel, $1 Million Peddlers, with a little bit of an index type deal, so you'll be able to find when everybody's show is on the feed, so you can jump ahead to the show that you want to watch without having to watch the entire thing. So I'll be doing that first thing tomorrow morning, just to let you know, try to make it easy for you. We're going to learn books, kind of amazing things we've learned so far today. I do laugh. People are, sitting there and talking about, world history as portrayed through postcards in the 1902 through 1905 area. And then I'm like, I'm going to talk about books. Of course I am. And of course, the most important book of all, Homer and Jethro's Confucius Say Joke of the Day book. This would be a premium book, actually. What a premium book would be, this was actually sponsored by Kellogg's Corn Flakes. I'm sure you could have sent away for this. Premium items tend to have a little more value because a lot of people didn't send away for them. There you go. You just learned something that I wasn't going to tell you. We're going to talk about books pretty quickly over here. 45 minutes. This, of course, is a book. This would be what you would call a dust jacket, which I'm sure all of you are aware of. Sometimes books are issued without a dust jacket. If you are listing them and you know they never came with the dust jacket, put no dust jacket as issued. That's the way that people will sit there and talk about if, as issued means it never had one. Another name for a dust jacket, of course, is the dust wrapper. You'll see some terms over here. You'll see the term bumping regularly. This book does not have it, but bumping would be when you think about if you did that to the corner of the book, you would say bumping. So a lot of older books will have what they call some bumping. So if you ever happen to see that, these are the spine extremities. And a lot of times in older books, this book again is too new. It doesn't have the problem. But you'll see a fraying, which will be when it's starting to come apart. So if you see that in a listing, or that's a good words to use if you are selling books, say, hey, it's got fraying on spine extremities. And this, of course, is the binding. I do have an example, which I'll show you a little later, about a book that has some problems with the binding. People like a tight binding. Sometimes you'll have, now this is not a book, but if I can find it, and of course I cannot because I'm hopelessly ill-prepared. Well, I'll find it later. I'll show you what some binding problems on stuff are as well. Important here, this has a price. Often the price will tell you it's not a book club edition, not always, but often the price. Now this price is crossed out. That was commonly done when people wanted to give it as a gift. The other thing they'll do is they'll actually cut the price area out. You would call that a clipped, like you'd say jacket flap, because this is the flap of the jacket. You would say price clipped, and that would mean they cut it out to give it as a gift, essentially, is usually what they ended up doing. Does take down from value, of course. There are some, and I probably have something here later, some of the children's books in the modern library books, actually on the underside of the jacket, will have information as well, which will definitely help you in dating those various books. Some will be advertisements for other books as well, take other books in the series and the like. This is what you call the end papers. A lot of times you call these the FFE, and then this would be the BFE, the back in the front papers over there. And a lot of times you'll see inscriptions, things like that on there as well, which I have some examples coming up a little bit later. This will be what you call the title page. A lot of times there will be a date here at the bottom of the title page, especially like with the Viking. That's a publisher, the Viking will often have that as well. And then this over here is what you call the copyright pages. Copyright page. This is often where you will tell the printing, especially on the newer books. Now take a look over here on this one over here. This is what you call the print line. And because it's got the 1 means it's the first print. If the 1 were missing and then the 2 were the lowest number, it would be a second print. For almost all publishers, there's one publisher, and I can't remember which one does not follow that or did not for a period of time. But otherwise, so you would call this, if you were selling this book, you would say full print line would be what you would end up doing on that. So it would be a full print line on that as well. And this, of course, is the ISBN number. Came into play in the early mid-70s. The early 70s, a lot of times they had the ISBN. They did not call it the ISBN, they called it the SBN, and it was actually missing the first number. If you are selling on various sites and you need to type it in and it looks like the wrong number of numbers, type a 0 in. Quite often on the site that starts with an A, that will end up being the correct ISBN. So that's an example of how you read those kind of things. Next here, I have a very interesting book over here, and a book like this threw me off the first time that I ever saw it. Full Official History of the War with Spain, great book over here, and then you start going through it, and wait a minute, that's page 273. That's page 231. Wait, that is not 42 pages between there. Wow, I've got an incomplete book. But then you take a look at the binding and you say, no, it's complete as issued. What's going on? Well, these actually were salesman samples. And you can tell here as well, this would show you what the actual spine would look like if you went and you bought this. And they tell you all about, well, how great the book's going to be. And these are samples of what the book is going to look like, the pages, the pictures, and all that kind of thing as well. So if you find a book like this and you take, that's another thing. A lot of times people actually used to press flowers between the pages as well. And people will actually collect those as well. I had one guy say, I do collect them. Just let me know what book it came from. I'm like, okay, fine. But if you do see a book like that seems to be incomplete, yet it's not, because you can just tell by the binding and the way the spine is, it was actually issued this way. It's a salesman sample. They do carry extra value over the regular book, just because obviously there are fewer of them made. Just to let you know. That being said, it's not the full book by any means whatsoever. So a collector would want this for his collection. Somebody who wants to actually read the book would not be as interested because, again, it's not the full book. Up next, you've got books like this over here, and these are what you call raised bands. And they make the book, you can't really tell right over there, but you just see how that's just a little bit above. Those are called raised bands. And, they do flip and root. Indeed, they do. These are raised bands. And nope, this is not a good example, but a lot of times you'll have it on these fancier books. Now, this is a faux, I call it a faux fancy book. They try to make it seem like a really good book, like an Easton Press kind of thing. It's not. But it does have the raised bands and the looks of it. On the Easton Press, things like that, they'll have the gilting along the top, on the sides of the pages, which is the gold. You'll have that as well. So that's something else to look for. That's called gilting, gilted edges, and raised bands. So it kind of makes the book look a little bit nicer when they're trying to sell it. This over here is not a book, it's a postcard. But this is an example of a early horn book First primer from which the colonist children learned their letters. Thin paddle-shaped piece of wood placed upon it a parchment page protected by a sheet of transparent horn, hence the name. So this would be, the kids would sit there and stare at this all day and learn their alphabet, and D for dog, C for cat, and so on. These are very, very valuable if you really can find them. I did read online, though, most of them are fake. They're later reproductions. They're still going to be from the early 1900s, but they're not actually from the Revolutionary time. But that's what it looks like if you ever happen to see one of them out in the wild. I've only ever seen one, and it was at a Buffalo book show. But pretty neat little item right over there as well. A lot of times they'll issue the books first as hardcover, and then they'll go into paperback versions. Well, there are people that want to buy this anyway because, I'm a completist, I want all of them. And there are people that don't want to spend a lot of money, so they don't want to buy this, or this is more convenient for them, whatever. But another thing they always do, updated with new FBI information. They often in the paperback version, because more often than not, the paperback version comes out after the hardcover version, now updated with, and they'll have an extra chapter or a couple of extra pictures or this or that as a way to try to get you, who already own the hardcover, to buy the paperback. Just to let you know, that's a little trick that they did. This would be an example. You could call this a first thus because it's a first paperback version of it. So it's the first thus. It's not really the first because the first obviously would be the hardcover version of it. Another thing that I just thought of, there's a thing in books that's called follow the flag. Now, what that means is somebody like James Bond, all things being equal, you want the British first edition because the author is British. Something or other written by an American author, you want the American first edition because it's an American author. So the Harry Potter, well, the value and all that, I mean, not that the American first aren't valuable, but the value, of course, is in the British first edition of that. And it's called Follow the Flag. There are some exceptions if it was published in a foreign country much earlier than in the home country. But generally speaking, just remember, follow the flag. And just the way that works. This is another kind of binding over here. This is called spiral bound, and it's not to be confused. For years and years and years, I don't have an example of a comb bound, but the comb bound, this is actually a spiral, and then the comb bound is more the plastic one that you see up the spine. That's a comb bound. This is a spiral bound. They are different kinds of binding, but just now you know another term there to use. You can say spiral bound, comb bound, depending upon what it is when you're trying to sell things. Now you get a book like this. Yeah, that's seen some better days. This is a book that I will end up selling. Oh, there we are. That is gilted. As you can see, the little gold right over there. This is a book I will end up selling over at a junk journal auction because as a collectible book, it doesn't have any value whatsoever. It is completely falling apart. That being said, the junk journalists will, use this book and repurpose it for something or other. The people that take the books apart, they're called breakers. I tend not to be a breaker. I don't like to do it, but a book like this has no collectible value whatsoever. So I would much rather see a book like this be repurposed than see it end up in the landfill. So just to let you know, I wanted to give you an example of a book that, just has seen better days. This, again, is not a book, but I wanted to show you something on here. I don't know if you can see this right over here. Oh, congratulations on the bronze tier, Nat. I don't know if you can see this right over here, but that's what they call a blind stamp. And you'll occasionally see that inside books, people will blind stamp their name on the title page of the book, like as a proof of ownership kind of thing. Another thing you'll see is, and you've seen it before, I may have an example in here as well, inside the book plate. Well, this is kind of the same type of idea, but that's called a blind stamp. So if you ever see the word blind stamp, that's all that means. We also have, now this is a magazine. There we go. But this would be called spine roll. In a book that doesn't roll the same way because you have the hard boards on it. But that would, if a book that looked like this, you would say cocked. So you would say spine cocked would be the word in books. In magazines, it's a spine roll. And it's just from people bent it over when they were reading it or stored it wrong or whatever the case happens to be. So spine cocked in books, spine roll in magazines. Then we have a modern library book over here. Now, these are very collectible, but very difficult to figure out. I did buy the price guide. I started looking at the price guide, and after a while, I said, yep, these are way beyond what I can know. And again, here's the end papers. And a lot of books will have the nice little decorations and everything like that there on the end papers. But yeah, so these are, 1899, 1917. Well, this is a much later book than this. This is probably 1930s or 40s. And so you can't always trust the copyright. You can say 1917 copyright, which would be true, but you would probably say CA, which means circa, CA 1940 or 1930, something other like that. I'm trying to take a quick look. Yep. Another hint. Now, this one does not have it, but sometimes you'll see on here on the copyright page, and it'll talk about this book was produced in accordance with the wartime paper provision, something or other like that. And that places it during World War II. You weren't allowed to use a lot of paper during World War II, obviously. And so if you see that on there, you can date it to World War II as well. So that's an example of that. Got a few other examples over here. Now, Capitalism, Democracy, and Ralph's Pretty Good Grocery. Great book over here. This is what you call a gift inscription. These are often given. Now, this is a more lengthy than most of them. But, happy birthday, Bob. Thought you'd love this book. Love grandma, or whatever the case happens to be. Called a gift inscription. You would say inscription on FFE. So front free end paper has an inscription. Inscription on FFE. And that's all you would say in your listing for something or other like that. And yep, so full print line over here as well. So that tells you this indeed is a first print as well. But does not have the price on the jacket on this one over here. So could be some sort of a book club edition on this over here because there is no price on the jacket. That's usually what you're looking for value on that as well. And then you get into a book like this, The Great Road. This also has an inscription. Trust me, it does. However, notice something or other about this? James D. Dilts. James D. Dilts. So this would be inscribed by the author, and then a real preservation inspiration. Depending upon whether the author knew the person or not, these could be presentation copies. There's all kinds of different things on if he signed this as somebody he knew versus he was just sitting at a bookstore and signed. And there's obviously more value on him having given the book to somebody or other that he knew in general. But so this would be an author signed, and you needn't worry about something or other like this being fake. You don't have to worry about certificates of authenticity or anything. Adds $5 to the value. It doesn't add much to the value, but some people will say, well, for a couple of extra bucks, let me get the signed one. So that does add a little bit of value to it, but nobody's going to fake that entire thing. And another thing when you're dealing with autographs, if they're personalized, they're less likely to be fake because they have less value. So if I'm going to be faking an autograph, I'm not going to generally fake one that I would sit there and then devalue my fake. So just a little bit of a tip there on selling signed books. So I wouldn't worry about doing it too much. Golf Dreams, Writings on Golf by John Updike. Another great book over here, price on the jacket. And I wanted to show you. Oh, right there we are, 1996 on the title page. And then you get back over here. This is a nice one over here because this is marked first edition. And you'll see people say that in their listings. Marked first edition means it literally says first edition on the copyright page. So it is a marked first edition. And that would be the words that you would use, marked first edition. And in fact, you look at this, you see how that is? There we are. There's an example of spine cocking for you. It's just poor storage, and it's kind of, you got to do that to make it straight. So that's cocked spine. Just to let you know. And we're going to head on into good old Willie Nelson. It's a Long Story, My Life by Willie Nelson. So price on the jacket on that as well. Full print line as well on this. But this is an interesting one because not only does it have full print line, it also mentions first edition. So this is one of those as well that, hey, it's marked first with the full print line. which is really, really nice on that there. So this is first edition, first printing, no doubt at all about it, with the markings on it. So kind of some of the ways that you'll sit there and be able to identify the various books when you see them out there. Wanted to head on over into some other ideas over here. This book over here, once you've been doing this for a while, you can pick this stuff up immediately. I looked at this. I said, that's library binding. And I picked it up. It's got stamps from a school. So a school library or school binding. Yep, there we are, 99th Street Library. And sometimes there are different bindings made for the library books, because when they put the library books out, they don't necessarily want the dust jackets on them, especially for schools, things like that, because they would get damaged so easily with the kids handling them. So they will actually have a printed board like this over here. Carries less value because it is a library book. You would call that XLib, EX-LIB. It would be an XLib book, library book over there. Does carry less value, but there are people that want it because it's not the regular edition and it's noticeably different potentially from the regular edition. So they would want it like as just a little addition to their collection. Just to let you know, so if you see that. Then we get into the next interesting book I have over here. A Child's Book of Christmas Carols by Masha. Look at this. This I thought was really neat. That has the same there. Now, this is a regular book, but they actually did print it right over there. These books are sometimes difficult because you'll find the book like that, and then you've got to do some research to find out if there ever actually was a jacket or not, because there wasn't always. Obviously, the jacket does add a fair amount of value to a book like this, and especially a book like this here, because the jacket would be easily gotten rid of, and you still would have the nice same artwork on the boards. So kind of neat there. Another thing there to be looking for when you are out there. Another way that books were issued. Oh, hello, Mommy. Sunny Days Bookshelf. Look at that. A nice box. Now, you will often find the various books, but you don't necessarily find the box very often. The box does add a fair amount of value, and this is nice too, because not only do you have the box, you have the advertisement that originally came with the book as well. So sometimes Platt and Munk does a fair, that's a publisher, Platt and MUNK, will have a series of kids' books that did come in boxes as well, right? So really, really neat on that as well, with a nice little box with that. So do love those as well. Now, this is a very interesting book. Comes in this over here. This is a plastic slipcover from the 6 Feet Under. But look at the binding on this. Look at the spine. How interesting is that? I've never seen another book with a spine like that, and that is exactly the way that it was issued. Very interesting book over there. 6 Feet Under from the TV show. Very odd spine. And then it comes in this nice little plastic slip case as well. You can call it a slip case or a slip cover. Either one would work. A lot of these books will be coming to a future book auction, just to let you know. Some of them are for my personal collection, so they will not. But some of them will. This is a copy of another slip case over here. If I can get the book out of it. There we are. So that comes in there as well. Heritage Press. Now, Heritage Press has these, the sand glass. And this actually does add a little bit of value. People do like collecting the heritage. You can pick them up from time to time out there for $1 to $2 each. If you find them for that price, I would buy them. Usually most of the books go for $5 to $10. There are some exceptions. But you find somebody with a bunch of them out at a sale for $1 each. They got 11 of them. You say, take $10, you bring them over here or whatnot. You're going to make a little bit of money. So just to give you a little bit of a pricing on it, you're not going to get rich, but still, neat to bring. People do collect them, and people do want to know if you are selling these in other venues. They will want to know, is the sand glass included or not? It isn't always. Sometimes it gets misplaced, and sometimes you find them without the slipcase as well. Just to let you know on that over there. I'm going to show you some examples of other books out there. This one is very, very interesting, I thought. So I saw this over here, Adventure. And I said, what the heck is this? They wanted $15 for it. I got it in a clean out, so I didn't pay that for it. Okay, the heck is this? All right, it's got a little note in here. Adventure. So this is a pulp, but this is a bound pulp. And a lot of times what people would do with magazines, and you'll find it occasionally with comic books as well. I do have some comics as well that are bound. They would go and they would pay to have the magazine bound. Now, sometimes they're bound without ads. Sometimes they're bound without covers. So you need to note that as well. Obviously, if they've got the covers bound in there, they're worth more. But take a look there. It's been cut. And the comic books as well often will get cut down. They will cut the size of it to fit the binding. It does obviously take down in value, but it does still have value because it's the bound value. Yep, there's another cover in there and more. So just kind of an interesting little item right over there. And every once in a while you'll find something like this sitting on a shelf at a estate sale. Pick it out, and if you see it's a bound value, they're usually worth picking up because you get more than one magazine in here. There's got to be 8-10 magazines in there, something other like that. So pretty neat on that over there as well. Coming up next over here, got a couple of other examples. Caribbean. Now, usually, if it's book club edition, it will say book club edition here on the bottom. You would call that you would either call it BCE, which stands for book club edition, or BOMC, which stands for book of the month club. Those would be the two abbreviations that you see regularly. Well, this has no price on here, but it doesn't say book club. Occasionally, not that often, but occasionally, I don't know if you can see that or not. See that little square right there? You'll see a square or you'll see a circle on the back, and that denotes that it's a book club edition. Not on a lot of them, but some of them do have it, and it's actually saved me money before because I looked and saw that, and somebody was asking non-book club price for a book club edition. Can save you some money just knowing that little piece, so make sure you pull back the jacket and take a look, and again, you can just see that little square right over there. Oh, thank you. Do appreciate that. Thank you, Schmidt. It will save you some money right there with that little box right there, or a circle. It's called debossed. Embossed, of course, is where it's raised. It's debossed, which it's actually lowered. That's the technical term on it, just to let you know. And then this actually belongs to Libra, but she was nice enough to, she bought this yesterday at sale, but she actually allowed me to show this to you guys today. This is a very interesting one because it does have the price in the jacket. Yes, the entire run will be over on the $1 Million Peddlers. I will be indexing it tomorrow, and you'll be able to see the whole thing on $1 Million Peddlers tomorrow. But it does say book club edition. You very rarely see a price with the book club edition. And look at the way that's spelled. It's got to be a British version or Canadian version. So just kind of very interesting item right over there. I've never seen one like that before. Libra Nowlands is a very, very rare book. You can reach out to her. I'm sure she would be willing to take offers on that. Coming up next, I wanted to show you a couple of different kinds of books. These are ASE, or Armed Services Editions. These were actually given out during the war to the soldiers. And look at the size of them. That was so it could fit inside their pocket when they were out there. And if you read around, there actually are stories out there of whether they're true or not, you don't know, but like the Bible was one of the ones they put out like this, and somebody's life was saved because they had this in their pocket and they were shot, and the bullet got stopped in the book, and who knows if that's true or not, but makes a good story nonetheless. Armed Service Edition, there's a Superman one that I'm actually looking for, and the Superman one, exactly, antiquarian. The Superman one of this is $600, something like that. Most of these are, $10, $15, very, very collectible though on it, and they do have the number up there in the corner as well. Very, very collectible. I did pick up a Frankenstein, and the Frankenstein went for about $140, just to let you know. But yep, so these Armed Service Edition, you will find them out there. Do pick them up if you can pick them up for $1 or $2, just to let you know. Very, very collectible books. Another very collectible little kind of book that they have out there are these. E. Haldeman Julius, little blue book, which is actually kind of funny because I'm partially colorblind, but I'm not that colorblind. They did put all these out as well. There's, Moby Dick, all kinds of things in here, Spanish self-taught. there's like 1,600 books inside of this series. Another very, very collectible book. There also are some magazines put up by Heldem and Julius. Very, very hard to find. I've only ever owned them once. I picked up one collection of them with a Houdini in her as well. Very, very rare magazines to find. But do keep your eyes open for these as well. And as with most things, the higher numbers are rarer because the things kind of run out of steam at some point. With most collectibles, Classics Illustrated, all these various things, the early numbers, early prints of the early stuff is very good because nobody knew it would become a hit. And the late stuff tends to be really good because it ran out of steam. And it's that middle stuff when it was popular tends to be the most common stuff just in general. Pick these up if you can find them for 50 cents to $1 a piece. You'll make money on them if you're a reseller. Pay a little more if they're really high numbers, just to let you know on that. Give you just a general idea. Another thing that they do in books, My Turn Next. These are actually plays, and people actually do buy the old plays. Tell you a little something or other with magazines. Just this is a soft cover. This would be in a magazine. You would call that right down the center. You would call that a subscription fold. Same thing with comic books. It would be called a subscription fold because what they used to do back in the day is they basically folded the thing in half and threw it in the mail. Basically, is what they did. So that would be a subscription fold. So if you ever see that listing in a magazine listing or a comic book listing, that is what that refers to. It's just a fold right down the center. But yeah, so they ended up doing plays as well. Some of the plays, of course, like everything else, have great value. You get the early prints and all that in them. Most people walk right by things like that. If you're a reseller, I would end up buying things like that just because, again, you're not going to have a lot of competition for them. That's kind of the way you always want to go. Why buy what everybody else is buying? Wanted to show you this over here. We're all familiar with Peanuts. Well, the earliest Peanuts had things like this over here, Charles Schulz and more. So this is the early runs of Peanuts were books like this over here. You don't see this version very often. You tend to see the regular paperback size. But this version over here, you tend not to see that often. So do keep your eyes open for that, and it'll be coming up in a future auction as well. Shropshire Lad by E. Houseman. A lot of times these books are difficult to date, and that's just, well, this one actually is not difficult to date if you can read Roman numerals, but you have various publishers like Henry Altimus, for example, that did not put the dates anywhere. Yeah, here we are, January 1944, a wartime book. So I was just talking earlier about it would have a wartime thing on there, and sure enough, 1944. That's actually a lot nicer than a lot of those that I see out there. But you will see those that does date it to about the war. Got more here to talk about than I'm going to get to today. I'm going to show you these real quick. Did a little bit of research on these. These actually were printed in England, the Mighty Midgets. Sold exclusively at Woolworths, but essentially Woolworths made no money on them. They were asked by the government of England to print them out at the beginning of World War II. These are all uplifting stories where the good guys win type deal, and they wanted to build morale. These go for $10 to $15 a piece. Obviously, some of the rarer titles go for more on these over here. Mighty Midgets is what they're called. They've got the advertisement in the back. This advertisement actually is what ended up paying for the publication of them, just to let you know. But they're really neat if you ever happen to see them out there. We're going to be going over to Rumpus Room Collectibles. I'm going to quickly show you little golden books. I've got Nancy Drew books over here. I've got lots of stuff. We're not going to get to it today. Hopefully I'm invited back to another one of these at some point. Little golden books, believe it or not, and a lot of people don't know this, actually the early ones when they were published came with dust jackets. And you don't see the dust jackets very often whatsoever. If you see one in a dust jacket, do pick it up. They are very, very difficult to find in dust jackets. Another thing when you're selling little golden books, you got the name inside. You don't often find them without the name inside. People would write the names inside. You would want to note when you're selling them. How do you date these? Well, there's a lot of different ways. 1938 on this. I don't believe this one over here. Yep. So this, when they first started doing them, Yeah, so here I have another copy, if I can find it. Yeah, here's another copy. So another way to date these is you take a look here on the back and you see what book you're up to in the series. So that's only up to number 34 in the series. So that's an early book. Then we have another version of the Dumbo right over here. And that lists up to 90 and then D11. They did a special D for Disney for the various Disney ones as well. So this over here has an I. This is called the gutter of a book. So you look in the gutter, sometimes it's really deep in the gutter. And an I, well, A is the first print, B is the second print, so whatever I is the seventh or whatever letter it is. That tells you the printing on that as well. Now you get into the little golden books. They've got lots and lots and lots of different backs on them. And you can kind of, after a while, you can begin to date them just by the backs, knowing which backs are more common. There's a special Disney back right over there. Now, this would be 1970s on that one right over there. This one would actually be just before then, I believe. And so you've got all the various backs. So when you're running through, and they also did change, if you take a look here, they got the blue spine paper, then they've got that kind. So if you see a pile of them over here, and then the red are either Disney or Christmas are the red. So you go to a sale, and they've got tons of these over here. You see them like this. You gravitate toward the blue, and those ones that brown color are the ones you gravitate toward if you have limited amount of time, because those are going to tend to be the older, better ones would tend to be those right over there. But yeah, got all these over here. Now, what they did over here, they actually, at a time, this it's hard to read over here, but they changed the price. I believe that said 25 cents. They put a little star over it, and then it said 29 cents. So they actually raised the price by putting a little star on the cover and changing the price right on the cover, just to let you know that as well. You know, a lot of different ones over here as well on that. Then you've got this over here. At one point, I knew where these were from. This is a little golden book as well, believe it or not. I don't know if this came with a record or exactly what it came with, but these are uncommon. You don't find these around very often. I've had this one a couple of times, but they don't really look like it, but they are little golden books. And there is a good little golden book guide out there as well that you can pick up if you're really interested in them. You can really go deep into the weeds on which ones are good, which ones are not good, but that's just kind of a general thing. And then I found this one the other day, Little Red Riding Hood. Look at that. Opens the wrong way as far as we're concerned, but that is in Hebrew. So they're worldwide, and then this is going to be a 1960s back as well. Not a very nice looking Little Red Riding Hood there, but you can find the foreign ones as well. And like everything else, people are going to want to collect them because they want them for their own collection. And I love them, and I want that book as well on that. I'm going to quickly touch on a few other books that you should know. We got the Hardy Boys books. Look at that. Look at the difference in the thickness. The earlier ones are thicker, and then they went and they knocked a whole bunch of pages out and made them a lot thinner on those books over there. So again, if you're up there on a shelf looking at them, these are called the tweed covers is what they call these. These are tweed. But you would want to pick this one out first because this is an earlier edition than, I realize they're different books, but this is still an earlier one than the other one. But the ones you really want to look for when you're out there are these. The early ones are red, just to let you know, and then I have this here on the cover. This is a really early print of the Missing Chums. You got to be very, very careful on the copyright dates on these because they didn't change them. So what you do is you're looking over here. So Missing Chums is 4, Hunting for Hidden Gold is number 5. This is probably a second print, I would guess, because you often look here and you say, well, how many books have come out? So this is a second print of this book. Unfortunately, it's not in jacket and it's seen better days, but it's still collectible and valuable just because you don't see too many of those out there. And then you will also find them over here with the jacket as well. And again, Clue of the Broken Blade is there. Clue of the Broken Blade. So if not a first, it's going to be an early one over here because, again, the book here matches the book on the cover. So just to let you know, that's an early print of that as well. And then you get things like this over here, which you don't see too often over here. And then these are the ones we're all familiar with. The ones like this. These are basically the 1970s version of that over there with the photo cover or the illustrated cover and everything like that. Then you do run into occasionally out there. Here's some nice foreign editions. These are actually British. You don't tend to find these that often either, and these are not ones, at least that one's not in the, oh yeah, there's Clue to Broken Blade. Yep, so we just saw that. The whole different cover on that as well with the British versions as well on these things over there. So pretty neat there. And of course, the cousin of the Nancy Drew. And again, this would be a thick one and the blue. So this would probably be 1940s on this over here. Worth quite a bit more with jacket, of course, but worth more than 10 cents. Somebody paid for it back in the day. And then here's what they look like in jackets. And you see a couple of different jacket versions on there as well. This would be the earlier one out of those. But you'll find them out there with jackets as well. And again, the Whispering Statue. This goes to the Leaning Chimney. So this is a little bit later print in there as well, just to let you know. And Grosset and Dunlap is a publisher you should know. Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys, they did original. Most other books, they did reprints. They would be what you'd call a reprint house. Dam et Albert is another reprint house. Triangle is another. Blackiston is another reprint houses. So if you see something like a Tarzan book, if it's published by Burt or published by Grosset and Dunlap, it's not a first. Doesn't mean it doesn't still have value, but it's not a first print. Just to let you know on that. And then, of course, these over here, they call these the Flashlight series just because these are even newer. These are probably 1980s on this over here, just to give you an example of that as well. And another interesting, and there's another Hardy Boys one, but another interesting thing, this is actually a Nancy Drew book. This is Canadian. She's actually called Alice. So if you ever get up to Toronto or you get up and they actually called Carolyn Quinn instead of Carolyn Keene, just to let you know. So there's Carolyn Keene. They changed the name of the author and then they changed it to Alice. So if you see the Alice books up there in Canada, these are actually Nancy Drew books. So if you're a Nancy Drew collector, you definitely want to take a look for things like that. And it's actually funny because it was a pen name. There actually were a number of different people writing these. There is no Carolyn Keene. There was no Franklin Dixon. Those are not real people. But they sat there and they said, oh, look, by the author of Nancy Drew books, Carolyn Keene. So they just made these as well. And these are called the Dana Girls. There are far fewer books in the series that didn't really take off quite as well. But they are still collectible. And Ken Holt was allegedly written by Franklin W. Dixon. So if you see the Ken Holt books, you'll see Franklin W. Dixon's name on there as well. They're also collectible just because of that crossover. And this is an older version of the Dana Girls over here as well, by the light of the study lamp. And again, that's the Dana Girls. That's not the Nancy Drew. And then you get these over here. You get 2-in-1. These actually are from the early 1970s, and these were available via mail order. They were not available on shelves. You will see them out there as well. And the first 16 volumes, was it 8 volumes with 16 books or 16 volumes, actually are available in the regular size, and then there's actually a larger size. And the larger size is actually a little bit more valuable because they didn't make nearly as many of them. I'm going to show you a couple of other quick little books over here. Ken Holt Mystery. This kind of ties into the whole Hardy Boys type thing as well. These are series books is what they're called. And again, very, very hard to date on that. Gallows Cliff. Well, this says Skeleton Island, so it's not a first print. Skeleton Island is the first book in the series. So not an overly great book, or you could just look there and see the number 1 on that as well. But they're very, very collectible overall. And then another book that came out during the Depression, these are not good versions of them, but the Big Little books, you'll also see Better Little Book, and there's a couple of other titles. I think Whitman brought up Big Little Book. Other people